sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big timer, a social misfit. Clueless to the title of the biggest bus gag hits. Chuck Munchie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, cute Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Alan. Of course he married Sandy, cause she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
A very good afternoon to you as we welcome you on into Rochester's only local sports talk show. You found the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're listening along at 95.7 FM, at AM 950, in the free-to-download Odyssey app, or our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. Our video stream is up and rolling for you right now. You can also stream the sports bar on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. I'm Mike Danger, and that's Gene Battaglia.
Sneaky good sports day here. We got the Sabres-Rangers tonight, and I think as far as Thursday night football goes, yeah, you should have a piece of one of these teams, I would think, for fantasy here, Bengals and Ravens. So how are you today?
I'm good. I had to check my lineups, make sure I got T. Higgins out of all my lineups because God knows that guy can't get on the field this season. That was a smart draft pick by me. I'm really looking back with great joy and glee when I think about this year's fantasy football draft season. How many whiffs did I make?
Well, I'm going with something really gutsy. I picked up Mike Gesicki. I'm plugging him in tonight over Sam Laporta.
Ooh.
I'm done sitting around waiting for Sam Laporta. So for everybody else, you know what this means. Sam Laporta on Sunday Night Football is going to go crazy.
He'll go off, yeah. I mean, we've got the reverse curse happening everywhere we look. I was telling Gino before we got on the air, we were talking about tonight's action. You'll hear the Sabres tonight from Madison Square Garden on the Fan Rochester. I maybe sprinkled a half unit on the Sabres money line tonight, plus 165. I mean, it's either going to make me really, really happy or just like, well, sorry, guys. Didn't mean to curse you. Didn't mean to make it even tougher for you there against one of the league's best teams. But we'll see. We'll see if they wake up a little bit. The Amherst certainly are awake. 5 straight wins now. Kulik getting on the board. And in his debut of the season for the Amherst, and they get the win in Cleveland last night. So they return home tomorrow night to take on Hartford, another game you'll be able to hear on the Fan Rochester.
Yeah, how about that? 3 straight road wins, winning in Cleveland, sound win. So good for Mike Leone and the boys. Again, back home tomorrow, and then they go to Wilkes-Barre on Saturday.
We've got a great show lined up for you this afternoon here on the Fan, including a conversation with our buddy from the Locked On Colts podcast, Jake Arthur. Going to tell us a little bit more about Indianapolis when he joins us at 4:25 this afternoon.
Yeah, so the quarterback story being kind of the headline, right? How far can Joe Flacco take you? But tell us a little bit more. The Colts are going to be without their starting center here. They've got some other injury concerns, including their leading tackler. So we'll talk to Jake Arthur and try to make sense of this because, well, the Bills are favored, but not, for a 7-2 team, Danger. They're not favored by as many as you would think. It still remains Buffalo -4. It started out 4.5. So a lot of people thinking that the Colts will keep this one close. Jake Arthur in the 4 o'clock hour.
And joining us in about 20 minutes or so, our buddy from 13 Wham Sports and Buffalo Plus. That's Stan Fates.
Yeah, as 7-2. Did anybody predict this? Not even Masterstroke would have had the Bills coming out of the gate.
John from Rochester. He had him undefeated. He had him going 17-0.
John from Rochester would be the guy.
Yeah.
Not even John from Rochester, let's be honest. 7-2 is solid. Is 13-4 within reach? Well, it starts here. You can't slip up against the Colts, but then when you look at the next 4, yeesh. Okay, 2 teams that went to the Super Bowl, another went to the championship game, and a Super Bowl champion for a few years ago. So between Niners home, and then you go to Detroit, you go to L.A., and then you actually come back in there. You also have the Chiefs, obviously, to start that whole stretch out. Danger, 2-2? Is that realistic over that 4-game stretch?
I mean, if you're 3-1 out of that 4-game stretch, let's say you only drop one of two between the Lions, the Chiefs, or one of three between the Lions, the Chiefs, and the Niners, I think the Bills have a chance to be the 1 seed if they go 3-1 in that 4-game stretch.
If you get the Chiefs game in particular.
If you win the Chiefs game and you go 3-1 in that stretch, I think the Bills will have a chance at the 1 seed. Even though Kansas City hasn't lost yet, they could suffer their first loss in Buffalo. Even I would listen to that, and they would still. I think they would still, if they go 3-1, still have a shot at the 1 seed.
Yeah, we were joined earlier by Mike Catalana. That was on Monday. He said, "Oh, it'd be great to have the Chiefs in here undefeated." I know some people might say that, but look at it this way: if the Bills take care of business against the Colts, and if Denver with their defense, and again, Bo Nix, it's a tall order, but it is a divisional game. Well, then that game gives you the for the 1 seed here, because then the Bills would be holding the tiebreaker over Kansas City.
And you got Denver coming off a bad beatdown. I mean, a bad beatdown. So if you believe in spots, if you believe in not when you play, or not who you play, but when you play, Denver's not as bad as they looked last week. And I expect that they'll bounce back a little bit. Wait, hold on a second. Am I wrong? Did Denver play Baltimore last week?
That was last week.
They got beat down by Baltimore.
You know why you're confused? Because they look like Boise State out there in that gear.
There was a game against Cleveland that I want to say, was it Baltimore lost to Cleveland? I'm getting my games all mixed up. I'm sorry. But my point is that if Baltimore did what they did to Denver, Denver's probably not as bad as what we saw last week, and they'll have a rebound here against Kansas City. So we'll monitor that, and of course, hopefully, come back next week thinking that the Bills going into Chiefs week have a chance at that 1 seed. And it could very well happen if they get the win on Sunday against Indianapolis and they get a little bit of help from Denver. We look forward to that, and we're not looking ahead too far, but let's go ahead and look ahead to the bye week. It's no football, but we've got something going on during the bye week that's worthy of note.
The bye week. In Danger, you and I are in agreement. The best holiday is Thanksgiving.
It's the best.
It is.
Doesn't get its due.
No, it's gotten overrun. This year, I don't know what it is. Maybe lots going on, but I haven't seen as much Christmas stuff yet.
I mean, it's been like close to 80 degrees almost every day.
Maybe
that might have something
Yeah.
to do with it. Like, I'm not really thinking about snow falling right now. I still have my snow blower tucked away in my shed. I haven't broken that out yet. I know most of us probably have that in October, middle to late October, just in case weirder things have happened. We've been spoiled, man. Like, I can't think about Christmas right now. I know that the ads are starting to pop up everywhere.
We'll stiff arm that, and I'm sure we'll have your favorite Christmas ad if you're a sports bar regular making its appearance once again.
Ooh, yeah.
Three Heads Brewing. Friday before Thanksgiving, not Black Friday, but Friday, November 22nd. That will be our next appearance. We're working on a lot of great stuff. We're partnering up with the Nighthawks here once again.
Nice.
That's going to be cool. Chris Trapasso from CBS Sports will be making the drive-in. He'll be hanging out. And to me, Danger, that is, a lot of people do take off time around Thanksgiving. So why not start the holiday week with us here? That's coming up, what did that be? Yeah, 2 weeks.
Well, maybe your place of business is like our place of business. People aren't really taking off, but they certainly aren't working. So if you're not working, then feel free. Feel free to go ahead and show up to Three Heads Brewing a week from Friday. A week from Friday?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks from Friday.
Yeah.
Getting ahead of ourselves here. The 22nd. That's when we'll be there next for our live show, Friday Football Talk Live from Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue. You can join us at 866-4326. That's our number, 585-866-4FAN. We're on Elon's Twitter, @TheFanRochester. As always, you can engage with us there. You mentioned we've got a good Thursday night game tonight. You've got the Bengals. You've got the Ravens. I actually like the Bengals with the points in this game. I think the Ravens win, but I don't think it's going to be as lopsided as we've seen some of these Ravens games. And I think Cincinnati can give Ravens trouble the way Cleveland gave the Ravens trouble a couple of weeks ago. Khalil Herbert will make his debut on the field tonight for the Bengals in their backfield. I mentioned no T. Higgins, doubtful for tonight, so expect maybe a big game from Jamar Chase. And Gino, I'll be pulling for your boy, Mike Gesicki. Hopefully he has a big game for you as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit of roll of the dice there, but 52.5, the over-under there, so a lot of people expecting some points here tonight. And as you mentioned, we do have Sabres hockey. They did get the win Tuesday over Ottawa, and to me, look, if you fall into the camp of I pay attention to hockey once football ends, I understand. I also understand from the standpoint of it's still early in the season. In the NFL, or college football, wins in September equal to wins in certainly December. You can say the same, I guess, 2 points matters the same in October as they do in March, but I look at how the team is going to come along here and where we're kind of down and out. All right, you get one game against Ottawa. Can you build off that? Or are we going to take a step back again here with this team?
Man, I hope not. But, we'll see. They're at Madison Square Garden, and if you're a believer that they play at a level of their competition, then maybe they rise up and they give the Rangers a little bit of a run for their money. Their Shesterkin's pretty damn good, though. Also happening around the NFL, I saw this, and I'm happy for the player because he's having a nice season, and he probably deserves it, but it just reeks of the kind of move that you would see a team like the Bills make when they were in their drought. Chuba Hubbard got an extension. The Panthers maybe, feeling pretty high off of getting that fourth-round pick that they got from the Cowboys for dealing their wide receiver. I don't even remember. Mingo, who
you don't remember his name. He's not really
fourth-round pick.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard's getting a 4-year extension out of the Panthers' backfield there. He's going to receive $15 million fully guaranteed, a max value of $37.2 million. And, to hear Panthers GM Dan Morgan talk about how this player exemplifies everything they want the Panthers to be and all of the flowers that he's throwing at Chuba Hubbard. And I'm not here to criticize that because he's a nice player and he's having a nice season. But at the same time, you just invested a second-round pick in Jonathan Brooks out of Texas, who hasn't played this season because he's coming off a torn ACL. It just feels like the kind of move that we would see the Bills make back in the day, right? I mean, oh, man, we love the guy, we love the Fred Jackson kind of player because he's everything. He embodies everything that we want. And it's like, yeah, he's a nice player. We don't have to pay him what you're paying Chuba Hubbard for here, a 4-year extension.
Well, in defense of Fred Jackson, he's actually third all time in every stat for the Buffalo Bills rushing.
Again,
he was a good player, but he was never top 10 in his position paid. That's what the Panthers did today. They put Chuba Hubbard top 10 running back pay. And if you're listening to top 10 running backs in the league right now, no, he's not a top 10 running back.
Also, when you drafted a guy in the second round from Texas, you invested a second rounder in that guy.
Right. You could say, well, they've got to spend their money somewhere. All right, well, you had this really great defensive end, Burns, and who knows, maybe he wanted out, but you flipped him to the Giants. What are you doing? Fourth-round running back, you can go draft another fourth-round running back. That's the way I kind of view it. And if you're taking this back to Buffalo, so you fall in love with your own guys. That's also part of this, too. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's not a, hey, bad team, good team. It's, hey, we really love this guy, but the money you want to pay the guy you really love, is that the value? Keep this in mind when we're going to be talking about James Cook in 2 years. Or, heck, Ray Davis. Ray Davis is really good value fourth round.
Yeah.
Well, go get another fourth round.
It's I kind of like that we've already broken the seal and talking about what the Bills' strategy is going to be with James Cook, because it appears to me that they have themselves a star coming out of the backfield. And a lot of these star running backs want to get paid. And I don't blame them. When you see Saquon Barkley do the things that he's done this year, or Derrick Henry do the things that he's done this year, pay them. They deserve that. They're fantastic.
Saquon and Derrick Henry are at a different level than James Cook. That's what I would say. James Cook is a fine player, but he's not.
So when he comes around commanding top dollar, when it's his turn to get paid,
that's going to be a tough decision.
Right.
And the good thing in the Brandon Beane era is we haven't really had one of these. The closest we got was Jordan Poyer. Jordan Poyer wanted the new contract. They weren't going to give it to him. He was loyal. He came back. And in the following year, he came back with a tail between his legs. But there was never any holdout or any rhetoric or anything like that. Bills are Beane's pretty clear when it comes to the communication with the reps there, the agents.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know why when I saw that deal, it just harkened back to a different time of Buffalo Bills football. It just reminded me of teams that will, we see the Jags do this too. What they did with Gabe Davis. Christian Kirk was a name that was being floated out there as a trade candidate because they overspent on Christian Kirk coming in from Arizona as a free agent a few years ago. And the Steelers were actually in the market to trade. They were going to give up a third-round pick for Christian Kirk before Kirk broke his collarbone for Jacksonville and basically rendered himself useless in the trade market. The Steelers go ahead and get their plan B, which was Mike Williams out of the New York Jets before the trade deadline earlier this week. So I see teams like the Panthers, like the Jags, doing things where you kind of scratch your head and you're like, oh, okay, I guess. Going to pay Chuba Hubbard. Speaking of the Jags, this is noteworthy for a team that probably isn't making the postseason, but a team that I think a lot of us believed would be more competitive in the AFC South. You might not see Trevor Lawrence for a while. He's unlikely to play this weekend against the Vikings. He's got a left shoulder injury that might require surgery, and you can expect to see Mac Jones to start with Lawrence unlikely to play on Sunday.
So they knew about this injury before the trade deadline, right? Like, if you're being honest with yourself, like at what point are you letting go Doug Peterson? I thought it was going to be after one of those London games, right? Like, it's all of a sudden, like, Mac Jones is going to save the Jacksonville era of Doug Peterson.
That would be something. If you saw this team offensively do more with Mac Jones than what they've done with Trevor Lawrence, that would be something. I'm not going to hold my breath for that. And to answer your question, I think Doug Peterson's done at the end of the year. And they start all over. I mean, how many of these teams are just going to start all over again? Including my team, including the Bears. The Bears are frustrating because it's just history repeating itself and repeating itself and repeating itself. Caleb Williams will be the third quarterback that they've drafted in the first round that will have a new offensive coordinator and head coach in his second year. Rookie season, wasted. Complete waste.
You had a chance at Harbaugh. I know
sure.
Harbaugh is a very divisive figure when it comes just to football. He would have been beloved in Chicago going back.
No question.
So why didn't you do that? I don't know. It still is an attractive job.
I know why they didn't do it. They're cheap. That's why they didn't do it. If you want to know the answer, they never go out and spend big money on head coaches. They're cheap. They'll look for the up-and-coming guy, hence Matt Eberflus or Matt Nagy. They had John Fox for the first year of Mitch Trubisky, and then he was gone.
So what you're saying is, where Ben Johnson be really attractive, he's not going to pay him.
No way. They're not going to pay him. No way. I would love that. Yes, pair Caleb Williams with an offensive-minded guy. Pair Trevor. You thought you had it in Jacksonville. Pair Trevor Lawrence with an offensive-minded guy. It's just not connecting with Doug Peterson. So I don't know who that. Hell, it might be Doug Peterson. Now that I say it, I don't want to wheel that into existence. But when you see how the dominoes all fall when it's all said and done, Jesus.
The new head coach of the Chicago Bears, Cliff Kingsbury. Right. That's what you're looking at.
Right. Kingsbury, maybe, yes, because of his time with Caleb Williams at USC, that becomes a likely scenario depending on what Kingsbury wants to make if he were to become a head coach in the NFL again. So, yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty there, and certainly an injury to Trevor Lawrence's shoulder isn't going to do Doug Peterson any favors here as they play down the stretch the second half of the season, just looking to be respectable. It's been a rough go of it there in the AFC South.
This came across after we got off the air last night, but I think it is noteworthy because for Cowboy fans holding out hope, can they do something until Dak Prescott gets back? I don't know if Dak Prescott's going to get back. His tendon pulled away from the bone, the hamstring.
Yeah.
So he's yet to go on IR. When he does, that would mean December 9th, but everyone is saying that's not a 4-week injury. So that puts you, past Christmas? At that point, what are you even doing here? Again, they knew that to some degree before the trade deadline, yet you went out and you got Mingo.
Well, the thing that's crazy about the Cowboys is, you got Trey Lance. I want to say they gave up a 4th rounder for Trey Lance as well.
Yeah.
And Trey Lance ain't going to see the field unless something happens to Cooper Rush.
Which is weird.
Right.
Or maybe yeah.
everybody was wrong on Trey Lance. The lack of experience in college and now in the NFL is hurting him, and he can't get on the field. Man. Well, these are teams that are not going to be in the postseason, but they are teams that have interesting storylines as the season enters its second half.
Let's keep that in mind, too, because we'll talk more Colts next hour. Anthony Richardson, one of the knocks coming out is he didn't have a lot of experience in Florida.
Yeah, it's a red
Trey
flag.
Lance, red flag. That is going to be something I think people will pay more attention to, that you got to have the reps.
Yeah. Dan Fates, 13 Web Sports, BuffaloPlus.com. Bills on the practice field today. We haven't seen an injury report yet, have we?
No.
Waiting on the injury report to see how that looks, to see if there's any movement here with Keon Coleman. We will get Fates' report from practice today and preview Bills Colts coming up on Sunday, a game you'll, of course, be able to hear on the Fan Rochester, your home for Buffalo Bills football. Pre-game coverage gets underway at 9 a.m. Sunday morning, and then we'll have kickoff for you just after 1 o'clock with Chris Brown, Eric Wood, and Sal Capaccio. Dan Fates next on the Fan.
You're listening to the 50 The Fan, Rochester. Wake up and smell the sports with Maggie and Perloff on 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester, weekday mornings. And start your day with enough sports chatter to make your coffee look like a sleepy time tea. The Fan, Rochester Sports Update.
Thursday injury report has yet to come out. Buffalo a 4-point favorite coming up in Indy. Quarterback Josh Allen giving his thoughts on that Colts D.
I think they move around well. Their linebackers, they flow very, very fast. It's the hard group to run on. And they play a lot of bend don't break defense where they're going to force you to take some things that are underneath. I think their pass rush unit's pretty dang good. So it's a really good unit.
We will talk to Dan Fates, 13 Wham and Buffalo Plus coming up next year in the Sports Bar. Bills Colts, our coverage will begin at 9 a.m. coming up Sunday here on the Fan Rochester. Tonight, it's Buffalo Sabres hockey. Sabres looking to make it 2 in a row. They take on a good Rangers team that's down at MSG. Coverage begins at 7. The Amherst have won 5 in a row. Hartford coming to town tomorrow night. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, the Fan Rochester.
Pull up a stool and join us. 585-866-4FAN. 866-432-6. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
I just want to give them enough to stick, finish my career here, and that's it. So whatever I got to do that, and be here for the tenure. That's what I'm gonna try and do.
New Bills defensive tackle, old Bills defensive tackle, Jordan Phillips. Yesterday after practice, Dan Fates, 13 Sports, BuffaloPlus.com was on hand. As a couple of familiar faces returned to the team here after the trade deadline, Dan. And well, let's talk to Uncle Dan first, because much like last week, Dan, we're looking at this line and we see the Bills favored by 4 against Indianapolis. Last week it was the line against Miami that we're like, what's going on here? And if you took Miami with the points, you were feeling pretty good about yourself.
Which is what Dan suggested.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm wondering how you're feeling about this matchup against the Colts here at Lucas Oil.
Okay, so also, if you had the Bills -7, you didn't cover. I didn't cover that. I did also have on my best bets the Bills over 27.5 points for their team total. So I did go 1-1 in the Bills game. I also had the Khalil Shakir over receiving yards. So I know I may have given out here, lay the big number. I was wrong there, but I will wiggle myself out of it by saying I won the rest of the other ones.
Fair enough.
So you look at this week, like, wait a second. I know the Colts have kept every game close this year. Is that simply what this is here? Bills only by 4?
Well, I think it's also a little bit of the recency bias by the public, where the Colts were awful last week against the Vikings. Bad matchup, and I think sometimes maybe that gets stuck into people's heads where you go, oh my gosh, how is it only a 4-point line? Like the Colts, like you said, every single game, I believe, has been a 1-score game or a 1-possession game. So I don't think the Colts will be as bad against a Minnesota defense that was very blitz-heavy against a statue of a quarterback in Joe Flacco. So I think some of that sometimes weighs in, where the most recent game is what you go, oh, this team must stink. They're not that bad. Also, guys, if there's one thing the Bills struggle with, as showed up against Miami, is their lack of ability to stop the run. And Jonathan Taylor has been one of the best running backs in the league. So I think that also has some cause for concern, because if I think the Colts have any chance to win, their best defense will be keeping Josh Allen off the field by running the ball and trying to shorten this game.
Dan, you were there yesterday when Coach McDermott was speaking, and I thought he gave one of his – I mean, he'll give answers sometimes, and we'll kind of roll our eyes and laugh like, he's not telling us anything. He's not giving us anything. But he really went into talking about their inability to stop the Dolphins in the run game last week, and how it starts with that front four and making sure that they're getting pressure. And his detail that he went into was pretty remarkable, and it just kind of lends me to believe that what we saw against Miami, though we've seen it multiple times throughout the course of the year, that going into Indianapolis, no, they're going to really focus and dial in on trying to stop Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I think I've been on here a couple of times saying that's been this team's Achilles heel for how good the defense has been. They've got run on against Arizona. They got run on in both games against Miami. And then the way they were able to bottle up the run in Seattle, I think gave me at least optimism of like, oh, okay, like that's a physical team that wants to be running the ball between the tackles. And I thought that D-line in Seattle, I thought held up well against the Seahawks running game. And then we saw against Miami, maybe it was just the lack of attention to detail. Maybe they thought Geno was going to try and throw it more. Those kind of things I think flared up. And again, maybe you're caught looking one way and they hit you with another thing. So maybe this is a week where you get back to the fundamentals. We know Sean loves to talk about gap integrity and those kind of things. But I think they did get exposed. And I don't think he called them out by any ways, but like to me, the one guy that stands out or has lack thereof stood out is Daquan Jones, because he's supposed to be the big body in the middle there, and I don't think he's been playing very well. On top of, Ed Oliver gets paid a lot of money, so he's got to be able to be better in the run game as well. So I think that's has cause for concerns that reared its head up again against Miami last week is the run defense.
Yeah, Dan, hearing McDermott talk about yesterday, bringing in these two tackles, your thoughts on Jordan Phillips and Quentin Jefferson? I know it's hard to say, hey, do they have it or not? Well, that's what they're going to try to figure out. But hearing McDermott talk about, okay, are they in shape? To me, this sounds more like a glorified tryout, if anything. And because I'm just wondering, you have Eli Ankou. Why not give him? Yeah. What I've seen on Ankou, to me, he seems like a perfect depth piece there.
Yeah, he was the one guy I thought that flashed last week against Miami. A couple of really nice tackles for losses. And he's kind of been the stereotypical player that I've been kind of calling for. And when you guys have asked me, move at the trade deadline, I've been like, get beef, like get some size in the interior, because Daquan hasn't been that great. And we know that Ed isn't a big body in the interior. So I thought Ankou played well, and he kind of still said, he was asked about, I think it was Sal Marana of the Democratic Chronicle, kind of pushed him like, hey, like he played great. Like, why are we bringing these guys in that can't play on other teams to come here when you have a guy on your practice squad? And he kind of said, like, it's a fluid situation. You're kind of constantly evaluating. And so I think they know what Jordan Phillips brings. And I would have liked them to make maybe a bigger splash in the interior defensive line, but sometimes maybe it's just you're better with the devil you know than the devil you don't. And these guys at least are familiar with the building, familiar with the standards, familiar with the culture, and can give some sort of juice. We know that's what Jordan Phillips loves to bring with his personality and that kind of sense. I just don't know how much tread is left on those tires for these guys that, it's funny. Whenever anybody picks up somebody on other teams, you go, that guy stinks. But if your team picks the guy up, you're like, we got to steal.
That's right.
Like, I'm not sure what's left with these guys, but the Bills are at least familiar with them. It's not going to be this ramp-up period in terms of playbook and technique. They have that part down. It really is going to kind of be a ramp-up of where are they physically to play in game shape.
Yeah, and with Phillips, his time in Dallas, not really great when you look at some of the Pro Football Focus numbers against the run. He was dead last out of all qualifying defensive tackles. Dan Fates, 13 Web Sports, BuffaloPlus.com. Stopping by the sports bar, spending some time with us here, and I want to look at the wide receivers and the health of both Amari Cooper and specifically Keon Coleman. I know Cooper back at practice, but that wrist is still very heavily wrapped up, and I don't think we've seen Keon Coleman at practice yet. They're trying to figure out what to do there. What do you make here of the wide receivers, the targets for Josh Allen coming into Sunday?
Yeah, Keon was back at practice today in some form. He wasn't doing individual drills, but he was working off to the side with trainers. And as we saw today, it's similar to what we saw in the locker room yesterday, where there is no bandage, there is no brace, there is no tape or anything on that right wrist. So whatever that means. Where he is, I don't know. Normally, Sean McDermott, if there's a question, he usually goes with day-to-day. But what he talked about yesterday was it could be more than this week, meaning like he's probably not going to play. He will provide more of an update, he said, on Friday, but there was still an evaluation process going on. That was another thing that kind of stood out to me. Like, what are they waiting for swelling to go down to try and get a better look at what's going on in that wrist? But as for the other guys that'll have to step up, Mac Hollins, for a guy that was kind of in the doghouse earlier in the year, played well against Miami. And we all know that I think Shakir's volume could increase depending on what Cooper is. I remember after the game on Sunday, somebody asked McDermott how close Cooper was to playing. He didn't really want to get into that. But the way that he was so heavily wrapped that wrist at practice last week and again this week, I guess still has me questioning, is it worth it to try and have him out there? those kind of standards. But I expect Khalil to be more increased targets, as well as James Cook and Ray Davis out of the backfield. Josh has been so smart, so consistent, so disciplined with taking his checkdowns. He kind of even said that the Colts will, bend but don't break. Like, they just want you to try and dink and dunk the way down the field. Those are guys that I'm looking at to have an impact in the passing game.
Yeah, Dan Fates, 13 Wham, our guest here, Buffalo Plus as well. On the other side here, Dan, what do you make of what's going on in Indianapolis that, hey, we draft this quarterback, number 4 overall, 10 games in, time to make a change here. The idea that the Colts have really, I don't know when they go back here to Anthony Richardson, so we're going to see Joe Flacco here once again.
Yeah, I didn't hate the decision because it was kind of like the Bryce Young. Like, things are so bad, and they were in all of these games. But if you look at the numbers for what Anthony Richardson was, like, he was like the 36th best quarterback when it came to throwing. Like, there are big problems. So they thought they were in games. They thought maybe they could be a playoff team. We can't keep affording to shoot ourselves in the foot at the quarterback. Joe Flacco's not bad. Joe Flacco played really bad last week. He will not play that bad again this week. He just won't. So what do you do with Anthony Richardson? I'm not sure. I think eventually, if they continue to lose games and you're out of the playoff race, then you give the keys back to the kid to see if he's learned anything from sitting on the side. And the only thing, and Josh Allen was just actually on the Pat McAfee show, and Pat was kind of asking Josh about that. And Josh said he gave a ton of credit to Derek Anderson. He's like, I know Derek Anderson didn't win a Super Bowl like Joe Flacco has, but it was just a guy of how he conducted himself in walkthroughs, in meetings, in practices. That was something eye-opening. Because remember, his rookie year, Josh got injured for 4 weeks after the Houston game. Now, Derek Henderson, I was just looking at it. He came in and the offense scored 5 points, 6 points, and 9 points when Derek Anderson came in. Then Matt Barkley came in and put up 41 against the Jets.
Right.
But it is kind of that understanding of, I know Richardson had all of last year to sit back and watch too, but that was Gardner Minshew and some other things. Like, maybe they are hoping that he learned something from a seasoned vet, from a professional like Flacco, that can kind of maybe have some things click. But it's a tough balance to walk between wanting to give your rookie quarterback time and on-field reps while also keeping the rest of the locker room engaged on, we're trying to win this week. And that's what's tough. When Josh was a rookie in 2018, guys, they were not a playoff team. Josh just was going to go out there and learn on the job. And then that paid off dividends in 2019. So it's tough. It's tough. And all you can say as Bills fans is credit to the way that Beane and McDermott handled the situation here in Buffalo.
Yeah, I look at that situation in Indianapolis, and I wonder if there is a divide in that locker room, that if there's a split between the guys that recognize we're trying to win games and Joe Flacco gives us the best chance versus the other side of the locker room that may be thinking, well, you were unfair to the kid, and that's our guy. Yeah. We want him out there. The other thing that I can't shake, though, is, maybe it isn't split because everybody saw a quarterback tap out, which you don't do if you're the general of the team, and maybe that's an unforgivable sin that Richardson can't. Let's face it. I mean, for the rest of his career, he's going to be labeled as the guy who tapped out in a game for a play.
Not only that, but then he was the one that said he needed it. Like, it wasn't like, I don't know how I would have handled that of I had to go to the bathroom. Like what else would you have kind of played it off as? But for him to say, I couldn't go out there, I couldn't play, I needed a break. When you're sitting there next to offensive linemen who get their teeth kicked in on a day and day, every snap basis.
Correct. Like,
if you're quitting for me, what the heck am I fighting for? So that's a big culture. Like, if you're trying to set a standard and you're trying to set a culture, which is what the Bills have successfully done here, that's a big, big no-no.
Dan Fates, our guest here. Flacco, I kind of view him a little bit like Drew Bledsoe. Statuesque, pat. Screw it. I'm going to throw it deep downfield and see where it lands. Dan, is there an opportunity here for the Bills secondary? Because what the Bills kind of scheme up here, it almost seems like this is a game where Buffalo could get some takeaways here.
Yeah, especially with Christian Benford back. But I'm with you. Flacco throws that beautiful spiral. Josh even talks about that. Throws a pretty ball, still has the arm at 39 years old to make all the throws. Still played really well last year. He was the comeback player of the year last year over DeMar Hamlin. He took the Browns to a playoff game. he still has something left in the tank. It's just a matter of what are the weapons he's throwing to. Josh Downs has looked pretty good. Michael Pittman is playing very injured with a back. They thought he was going to go on IR. I think he maybe missed one game. So, there is opportunities for this secondary, especially with Christian Benford back. Says he's feeling a lot better from the wrist to make some plays and to get some turnovers. That's the other thing. Flacco isn't going to be afraid to throw it into triple coverage, and they're not going to be able to disguise anything that he hasn't seen in his 47 years in the NFL. So you're going to have to try and get some pressure on him, looking at Greg Rousseau, looking at Von Miller to try and do something this week so that Benford and Douglas and those guys can kind of make plays behind him.
So we do have the injury report, and as you mentioned, Benford, that's the good news, practicing fully today. Keon Coleman, a DNP, did not practice. That's how they're going to list him. Then the limited guys, get your thoughts on the Samuel. Okay. Amari Cooper, Kyer Elam, Reggie Gilliam, and Mac Hollins. So Hollins was actually full on Wednesday, limited today with a shoulder. But Cooper, I'm reading, there's some sort of cast on his wrist here. I mean, what would be the level of concern if you have a dinged up Amari Cooper to go along with Mac Hollins, and certainly it doesn't look like Keon Coleman's going to be available.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about Mac Hollins. I wouldn't be too concerned. A lot of times this season, we've seen Mac Hollins in a non-contact jersey throughout the year, and he has played every week. And yesterday's practice was a walkthrough. So a lot of times it's tough to discern what a real injury is and their level of participation as to what the practice would be. So yesterday was just T-shirts. Sean was saying that he wanted to kind of rest his guys halfway through the season, give them one day out of pads. Cooper also, the other thing that surprised me is he walked into the game on Sunday with some type of wrap on his wrist. So whether that, and we were kind of all sitting there watching was that fashion? Is this a fashion look that we don't know about? But he didn't have it on his right wrist. So there is something. I don't know if that meant that there had been some type of bracing that he's wearing at home to try and alleviate whatever is going wrong or try and help that. That's the big thing, that have they tried to do some minor procedure to do whatever. But obviously Cass is going to be really tough to play with for a wide receiver, having to catch Josh Allen throws. So that doesn't sound great for me, especially the Bills' first practice, that Cooper's once again limited and not a full go after having 5 days off.
Dan, the team is going to look beyond Indianapolis on Sunday, but we as fans, of course, are going to. In Week 11, you have the Chiefs. You got the 4-game stretch that we all circled when the schedule got released with the Chiefs and Niners at home, and then a trip to Los Angeles before you wrap up with Detroit in the middle of December. This 4-game stretch here, what's your expectation for it? Because Gino and I are thinking that if you get Kansas City in Week 11 and you handle Kansas City, that the 1 seed could still be in play. And I know you love it when we get ahead of ourselves here. We called the AFC East before anybody. We called that race really, really early, and we feel like we could say with comfort that the Buffalo Bills will win their 5th straight AFC East.
They absolutely will. The stretch you're kind of looking at going 2-2 would be great, right? After the Colts, you have the bye, or Colts, Chiefs, bye, Niners, Rams, Lions. So after this Chiefs game, I think you would love 2-2. I don't think that, again, unfortunately, Mike always talks about it, and it's so true. It's not who you play, when you play them, kind of thing. Like if you would have played the Rams back in the first month of the season, they were decimated by injuries. Now you're going to have to go out to L.A., where the Rams are now probably one of the hottest teams in the league after their bye. The Lions are an absolute wagon. The Niners will get healthier. Christian McCaffrey is expected to be back. So you're looking at, we kind of looked earlier in the year of that Ravens, Texans, Jets gauntlet. Now you're going to have another gauntlet coming through here. So I think you look at 2-2, and obviously that perspective changes. Like if you beat the Chiefs, then maybe you start thinking 3-1. But I think you kind of have to have some level of expectations of, I think we talked about last week too about Baltimore, because I said I think the Bills are the second best team right now in the AFC, because Baltimore is going to get cannibalized by some respects in that AFC North. The way that Pittsburgh is playing so well, the way that the Bengals are coming on, there's going to be some times where they get picked off because of their schedule. I think if you take down the Chiefs, you can still think about the top seed in the AFC, but it's going to be a tough stretch here after their bye.
Dan, you heading to Indianapolis? Is this your turn here to go on the road?
This is my last trip before baby number 3 comes. So this was
wow.
the wife and I tried to schedule these trips earlier in the year, and also Mike and I get to go to St. Elmo's and have the best steak that I've ever had, and that's always the best. So I do have a countdown timer on my phone of when our reservation is for St. Elmo's.
If I'm not mistaken, shrimp cocktail the size of a fist, too, as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a shrimp cocktail with the spicy cocktail sauce. Is absolutely phenomenal. And so it'll be Mike and myself and Matt Beauvais from KBW in Buffalo. Very excited. Made these reservations months ago. Very excited.
Very good. What are you working on this week that we can check out on Buffalo Plus, Dan?
Yeah, I actually just finished recording Best Bets. So that'll be up tomorrow, as well as our Thursday. We have our live show. Last week we recorded it early, but this will be a live show, 7:15 on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. It's our live podcast, so if you can't follow it live tonight, it'll be up and available on our YouTube channel, as well as anywhere you get your audio for audio podcasts, wherever you listen to Apple, Spotify, all of that stuff. So that's the big things we got going on, and then Mike and I head to Indy.
Bengals +6 tonight, Ravens. Who do you got, Dan?
If I was wanting to bet the Ravens, I would tease them with something else later in the week, because I love the Ravens. They're primetime at night games. They're 23-1 in their last 24, something like that, when the Bills went to play them on Sunday night. So I would tease them down just because Joe Burrow's been on an absolute heater. You don't really know what could happen there with the line. And then I like teasing possibly the Chargers coming up on Sunday. They're -7 at home against the Titans, or teasing the Chiefs down to 1.5 at home against Denver.
Very good. Uncle Dan, thank you for the tip. Thank you for the time. Have a safe trip to Indy, and let's talk next week.
Sounds good, guys. Appreciate it.
There's Dan Fates, 13 Wham Sports, Buffalo Plus, giving us his take on Indianapolis,
Do you
Bills'
like
opponent.
Teasers? Do you like doing that stuff?
Every now and then, I don't know. I mean, I like straight bets. Anytime I'm a sucker for a parlay. I will build parlays all day and just, not hoping to win a lottery ticket, just looking to say, like, well, this logically makes sense. If I put these 3 things together in a parlay, this can't lose.
Yeah.
This makes sense. And of course, it never works out the way you want it to work out. What do I have tonight? Because I did tonight. I'm like, all right, let me go with the Ravens on the money line, Burrow to go over a touchdown and a half passing, and Lamar Jackson to go 25-plus yards rushing. You hear that, and you're like, yeah, that's all plausible. That all makes sense.
So what are the odds on that?
+150.
Okay.
Right? I'll take it. Let's build on another one. How about Derrick Henry over 90.5 rushing yards? Kolar, the third tight end there for the Ravens, over 14.5. That seems low. That's a reception maybe.
Yeah.
And Gesicki, I'm going to go Gesicki under 8.5 first quarter receptions, thinking that they go to him later in the game.
All right.
I build that on +500. I'm like, okay, let's see what that turns out to be. We'll see. I'll build those all day and have fun with it, but I am going to go Bengals +6. Ravens will win the game, but I like the Bengals to keep it close.
+6, yeah.
Bengals +6. Appreciate Dan Fates stopping by. And next hour, we'll learn more about the Indianapolis Colts. Jake Arthur, who is the co-host of the Locked On Colts podcast. Like our Locked On guys, you can hear all the Locked On podcasts in the free-to-download Odyssey app. Jake hosts the Colts podcast, and we'll talk to him at around 4:25, get the latest out of Indy.
Yeah. Coming up, and I'll drink to that, I do have a baseball take here as we'll pass along the latest here. Now, we don't know all 13 teams that reportedly are pursuing Juan Soto, but we've got 7 of them.
Okay.
And one of them is like, wait, what?
Oh.
We'll get to that. And, and actually I kind of predict where he'll go to.
I'm going to help those that this week, we take here at Odyssey, we take our mental health seriously. And I know that there's more than a handful of friends that I've crossed paths with or I've seen in my timeline who may need help. I'm going to offer you some help as a guy to guy. I will give you some help as to how you get through any rough patches that you may be going through. And I don't know if you saw this or not, but somebody of great stature is tweeting about the NFL, and I'm to the point now where it's like I might just reach out to him and see if he can offer up some advice and maybe some of his divine wisdom towards this team in the NFL. We'll get into that as well with some takes on tap next in the Sports Bar. Jake Arthur stopping by right around 425. Your calls as well at 866-4326-585-866 for FAN.
W239BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Rookie wide receiver Keon Coleman did not practice today. Amari Cooper was limited. On the positive side, corner Christian Benford was a full participant. Josh Allen on his counterpart this week, the 39-year-old Joe Flacco. He's
He's an absolute baller. He throws one of the prettiest balls you'll ever see. So I got a lot of respect for him and his game. So Super Bowl winning quarterback. That's he's one of the ones. He's fantastic player, but an even better person.
Jake Arthur from the Locked On Colts podcast will join us later this hour. Bills Colts, our coverage will begin at 9 a.m. this Sunday here on the Fan Rochester. Week 10 of the NFL season begins tonight with the Bengals and Ravens. Here on the Fan Rochester, we got Sabres hockey taking on the Rangers, 7 o'clock for the puck drop. Amherst have won 5 in a row. Hartford coming to town tomorrow night. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Are the Bills going to have a letdown? Are they going to be looking ahead to Kansas City? The Bills have been playing great football over the last 2 weeks. They have not let the foot off the gas. They have not been looking ahead. They have taken care of business. I think Buffalo wins by a field goal.
Mike Danger.
This Colts team feels like AFC Seattle. Bottom line with what I'm saying here is if you want to be taken seriously as a contender, you don't drop a game to the Colts on Sunday. It can't happen. You beat them and you beat them thoroughly. So important. I think the Bills cover. I don't see any way that the Bills don't blow out the Colts.
Gene Battaglia.
In this game, you might get some takeaways for Buffalo if they're doing the right stuff, and I think the Bills should have some success. I do like the Bills in this spot. And last time the Bills played the Colts, I said the Colts would win big time. I just see this one a little different. And maybe it just tells you, hey, they're actually dialed in on this game.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
You're back in the sports bar. Welcome in. Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us at 95.7 FM, AM 950. The free-to-download Odyssey app. And our stream, you can watch the sports bar on our YouTube channel, The Fan Rochester. Streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. We welcome in Jake Arthur from the Locked On Colts podcast in about 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, we'll get the latest. We'll go beyond the quarterback stuff here as is this a team the Bills can actually run on, and why have the Colts kept all these games close? We'll learn a little bit more about Indy. I like how you called it the Seattle of the AFC.
That's kind of what I view them as Seattle of the AFC. You've got a lot of the same elements. You've got some players on both sides of the ball. You got a guy who can take over a game in the run game if the conditions are right. And you have an aging quarterback who you don't really know what you're going to get in any given week. Like Geno Smith is inconsistent. Joe Flacco, we want to believe he's back or he's consistent. He's not. He hasn't been. He looks good in moments, and I don't know that I believe he's going to be able to figure out or get over on the Bills secondary come Sunday. Really, for me, it's all about stopping Jonathan Taylor, and that's a pretty big ask, but you were able to do it against Kenneth Walker in Seattle a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, they didn't even try really in Seattle with that. So, and look, if Jonathan Taylor was all that, why aren't the Colts putting up more points? We'll learn a little bit more from Jake Arthur coming up in a little bit here. If I may start with a take on baseball here, Danger.
Baseball is it's the constant.
Hey,
there's always been baseball.
We're fluid here in the sports bar. Like there was a time where I got to talk baseball. Legitimately, I do think baseball has a chance to be the second most popular sport in the country right now.
Yes, it's because it's the one constant through all the years, Gene. It's been baseball. Baseball it's been...
Now, if you're new to the show...
It's part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that was once good and could be good again. Oh... I love baseball. When I wore cleats and I fell down the stairs and I lost my shoes. My glasses broke. Now I want to sue everybody.
I don't know why that's so funny.
Sue Brian Cashman. Ray Liotta. I'm going to sue everybody.
Well, sue the guy who's going to get money, Juan Soto, right?
Sue Juan Soto, yes.
Soto. I don't know why.
Why is Saul Rosenberg quoting James Earl Jones from Field of Dreams?
How did we arrive on that?
I don't know.
It It works.
Try not to get in my mind. It's a scary, dangerous place sometimes.
Well, if I could stop my laughing, I'll tell you what this is all about.
Tell me.
Well, we had a report that there were 13 teams interested. According to the New York Post, we now know 7 of them. 7. I'm going to list the 7. You tell me which one of these is not like the other.
Okay.
Ready? Yankees.
We went through this exercise yesterday. I thought we did a pretty good job.
We did a good job. Yankees.
Yep.
Mets.
Yep.
Dodgers.
For sure.
Sidebar. They're already moving Mookie Betts to the infield.
Okay.
What are they telling you?
Yep.
Right. What position did Mookie Betts play last year? Oh, that's right field. Blue Jays.
Okay.
Well, they had the money. They had it saved away for Ohtani. The Jays might steal him.
Sure.
How about the Red Sox?
Makes sense.
The Giants.
Yep.
The Tampa Bay Rays.
Huh?
Right?
Huh?
Look, the Rays in every team.
Why not just add the A's while we're at it?
Right. Like, should say let's talk, but a couple things. One, that would be a massive departure. I know they gave the shortstop there all the money there, but I don't know, maybe they'll get out of that contract if he gets convicted there. 2, the Rays are essentially homeless people. Playing at Disney World seems like the best of a lot of not great options for this franchise. I would tend to think not just for Soto, but for everyone, the Rays are going to be the last resort here coming up. Worse than Sacramento.
Yeah, but if you're Scott Boras, everybody's invited to the party, right?
Of course.
Everybody's invited to the party. Even if you're homeless, what do you got? Talk to me. Tell me the number you're willing to pay for this guy. I don't care about your stadium. I don't care about your team philosophy. What are the other teams that you think are in? Because if there's 13 and we just listed off 7,
The Rangers.
6, we need 6 more.
Also, I don't think I told you this, or maybe I told you off the air. The owner of the Rangers has family in Rochester.
Come on.
Yeah.
The Rochester Rangers?
Yes.
Might as well be.
I had no idea.
We take ownership of everybody.
Yeah.
We're very provincial here in the Flower City.
So the Rangers, I would hope the Cubs, danger.
Yeah.
Cubs are major market. The Angels. No.
Nah. I mean, sure, but no chance, right?
No chance. Yeah, put that in the Angel category. I still got to come up with 3 more there.
What about Houston?
Oh, yeah. Forgot about them.
I want to say a team like Cleveland or Detroit, but I don't see a team like Cleveland or Detroit spending that kind of money.
If it were Mike Ilitch back in the day, yes. I don't see Detroit kind of building that way. They seem like they have something good. That would be risky for Detroit, but sure, throw the Tigers in there. Why not? They should have the money for their. Just trace who has their own network, who would have the money, who wants to drive the Padres. Let's put the Padres in there. They don't have their own.
Go back to the Padres?
Sure, I think the Padres, like they were in on Aaron Judge.
But Soto would go back to the Padres.
Nationals
makes sense.
Yeah, so now we just
that
need
would
one
make
more.
Sense. Diamondbacks?
Nah, they're cheap.
Rockies? Nah. Seattle? Nah.
Yeah.
Seattle?
Mm.
We know the Reds are cheap. They're out. We know the Pirates are cheap. They're out.
They're
Royals? They're out. They're cheap. The O's?
The O should be in on it.
They should be.
They should be. This is a new owner. They want to own the Beltway once again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We got our 13.
There you go.
I don't know if you saw this or not, but the Pope is once again tweeting about the NFL.
Look, the NFL is so powerful
That's
that
right.
Vatican City is paying attention to the NFL.
I mean, Roger Goodell has to just love this. Like, God is on your side. You've got God now tweeting. The Pope tweeting out, "We cannot become #saints with a frown. We must have joyful hearts that remain open to hope."
When you use the hashtag Saints handle, right, the fleur-de-lis logo
The
comes
logo
up.
shows up for the Saints, yeah. I don't think the Pope realizes that #Saints is an NFL team, but I'm loving that he's showing interest in the New Orleans franchise. I'm about ready to ask him what he thinks the team should do with their lack of cap space in 2025. It's not good. It's really, really bad.
Somewhere in here, there's a joke about smoke, and when it goes up, that that the Saints have chosen a new coach here.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that what it's like?
Yeah, when the smokestack arises from Caesar's Superdome,
Right.
then you know that the Saints have selected a new head coach.
Right, right. Isn't that the way it goes? The smoke, if it's dark, nope, we didn't select the Pope. Come back tomorrow. Oh, it's white. We have a Pope. Everyone, we have a Pope.
Well, the thing that crossed my feed in conjunction with this update from the Pope, again, he tweeted out, "We cannot become #Saints with a frown. We must have joyful hearts that remain open to hope." It was a picture of Derek Carr sulking on the sideline. You remember that picture from when he was with the Raiders where he looked like a demon? I'm like, okay, that's pretty good work. I'm looking forward to more #Saints tweets from the Pontiff here in the future.
Listen, maybe the Pontiff is onto something. We're paying attention to now what the Pope has to say, just in hopes that he's going to tweet out something about the Saints.
Well, you need a prayer to get out of that cap space situation you're in 2025 because it is not good for the Saints.
Hey-o.
We take mental health seriously here at Odyssey, and I know there's more than a handful of my friends in my timeline that may need help this week. I'm also certain that if you're a sports fan, you likely will never need to go to therapy. Why pay a therapist, Gino, when you can just pepper yourself with sports cliches? We do it all the time. In fact, we did it right before we went on the air. You came in all excited. I did all of this great business today. We are doing so great. Crickets. There was nobody in the hallways. There's nobody around.
Like, I did that for Danger's benefit because this is, like... Yeah,
Gino, it's okay, man. You're just playing at the Trop. That's all you're doing. You're just playing to an empty stadium.
It's their sales department. We're the Tampa Bay Rays. Where's everybody?
Well,
no, nobody here.
I mean, you'll insist from time to time that on a slow day with our guest, perhaps Gino will look at me and be like, "You know what? Just go to the ground game. We got to go to the ground. You have a rough time getting out of bed? And tell yourself you need to run the damn ball. Take what the defense is giving you. Wait for life to bring the safeties down so that you can go for the big play opportunity." Gino, I had a Zoom call earlier today. I didn't really present the way I wanted to. One of the big bosses was on the Zoom call. That's just offsides. That's totally on me. Mental mistake, mental block. Your social life is bombing. You're just in a slump, buddy. We got to find you a layup. You need to see just one. Just one go in. Hey, guys, join me. That's what we got to do. We got to find you a layup. My dairy here is... You throwing down a case of cold ones by 7 o'clock as the Sabres drop the puck because you're trying to drown out the failed expectations placed on you by overbearing parents? Brother, it is time to make some halftime adjustments. I've got a bottle of bourbon in the cave. Let's come out in the second half, set a tone, and shut them up. Men don't actually need therapy. All we have is sports cliches. That's all we need to fire us up.
Maybe that's it. Just the halftime adjustments one.
Gonna make some halftime adjustments.
You're having a rough day, but you know what? The game's not over here, folks. We're gonna make some adjustments.
Yeah. I just think of sports cliches. If you're having a bad day, find the one that suits your needs. Use it to your advantage, and plow through your day.
Well, okay.
Finish strong.
Sales, man, I didn't get this, and I lost that account. You know what? It's a process. We're going to keep working at it, knowing that it's a process. And, what would who was it? It was Babbage. Either you're winning the day or part of you is dying. And if part of you is dying, that's okay because you can win tomorrow. Wow. That's kind of a morbid way to look at it. Yeah. Thanks, Coach.
No. You know what, man? You know what you need? Just stick to fundamentals. Blocking and tackling, Gino. Just blocking and tackling. Stick to the fundamentals, baby.
Well, look, as long as you're getting in front of the net and you're working the pucks in deep, something's going to bound to happen.
Every now and then you get a greasy goal.
Yeah.
Just need a greasy goal. You get a greasy goal, it can tilt the ice in your favor. You want to tilt the rink in your favor, get a greasy goal. Everything works your way.
I promise you, Danger, on this show, you and I, we're going to go the full 60. We're not taking a minute off here. It's the full 60 every
play a complete game.
Here. Yeah, we're full game here.
Yeah, we play a complete game. Complimentary. We play a complimentary game.
We do. Like, hey, if I'm a little off, you pick me up, vice versa.
That's right.
Yeah, it's never going to be both phases of the game. Actually, the third phase, like you tweeting in, you're the special teams.
That's
here.
right. That's right. Screw therapy. Guys don't need therapy. We have sports, and we have sports cliches. That's all we need. Jake Arthur, the co-host of Locked On Colts, is going to join us here in a few. Thursday Night Football Week 10 gets underway tonight with, you got the Bengals going to Baltimore, and we know what the Baltimore Ravens are in prime time at home, and it would be very easy to believe that they could win this game, but the Bengals have been pesky, and they're fighting for their season right now.
So actives, inactives tonight, the Ravens are not going to put Tre'Davious White on the field, so we do not get to see Tre'Davious White going against the Bengals here. By the way, that was the one thing I do remember about thinking, oh, this is like the beginning, the end, Damar Hamlin game. Like, that was not good for Tre'Davious White there. Tre'Davious White not playing against the Bengals tonight, but we will see perhaps a little Khalil Herbert.
Yeah, Khalil Herbert's supposed to make his debut tonight for the Bengals. Which,
if you're a running back, you really need to learn the playbook. Just take handoff. Which hole are you running to, basically?
That's right. Use your vision. Yannick Ngakoue was released by the Ravens, and assuming that he clears waivers, he could become a free agent.
I don't know if he's a vested veteran, Danger, so I don't think he actually goes through waivers. No. Yeah, I think he gets to pick his team there.
Okay. Well, he won't be on the field for the Ravens, as they released him earlier as well. And the Bengals are playing pretty good football right now, looking to kind of turn things around after a real slow start to their season. This is what I think is good news for the Buffalo Bills if you want to look at, in the future and think of playoff seeding. And the AFC North they're brutal. Uh-huh. It is brutal.
Yeah, so like from a Buffalo standpoint, what do you want to see tonight? Because you don't want any tiebreaker with the Ravens. And if the Ravens pick up loss number 4 tonight, all right, then you're 2 games fully up on the Ravens. Or do you want to invite Cincinnati back to the party? Cincinnati going to 5-5, and they're going to be farting around, and they've got the feels danger of a 6 or 7 seed. Like, I could see easily 3 teams from that division getting to the postseason.
If you were to tell me right now that the Bills would have to face either of these teams this week, I would be picking either of these teams to beat the Buffalo Bills, just because of how they're playing. Now, the Ravens stumbled against the Browns a couple of weeks ago. Again, that's why I like these division games. I think these division games in the AFC North are only going to help the Bills' chances of getting a higher seed in the postseason. So, and just to follow up in Ngakoue, the Ravens' hope is that if he does clear waivers, he goes back to their practice squad. If they had cut him before the trade deadline, he would have been an unrestricted free agent available to sign for anything.
Okay. Forgive me for not knowing that rule.
It was going to drive me nuts if I didn't get clarity on what Ngakwe's path is here. But the hope is for the Ravens that he'll end up on their practice squad. And this is a guy at this point of his career that's kind of been everywhere, like multiple times. And maybe it's time for him to just spend some time on the practice squad and be the in case of emergency break glass.
Well, I mean, if we just bring this back home to Buffalo, if I said, hey, the 2 guys you brought in are Yannick and Ngakoue.
I think they're probably still going to go with the 2 guys they brought in. I just don't think Ngakoue has anything left as far as his skill as a pass rusher. Haven't seen it in a long time. We all know the name. It's a familiar name because he had a season or 2 where he's like, oh, he's good. But now it's the Ravens hoping to get him on their practice squad.
Okay.
And as we look ahead to our conversation here with Jake Arthur next, I did see a Colts tidbit cross my feed, and that's that Michael Pittman Jr. did not practice for the Colts today. So that's 2 days now that Pittman hasn't been on the practice field, and they may be without one of their better wide receiver weapons. Joe Flacco may be without one of his top targets come Sunday against the Buffalo Bills, for what that's worth.
Yeah, Zaire Franklin, he's their leading tackler at linebacker. He did practice today, so that would kind of tend to you. But Franklin actually a Syracuse product.
We look forward to our conversation next with Jake Arthur. He is a co-host of the Locked On Colts podcast. And we'll learn more about the Bills' opponent coming up here on Sunday, 1 o'clock. Your home for Buffalo Bills football is the Fan Rochester. You can tune in starting at 9 a.m. Sunday morning for our pregame coverage. and kick off just after 1 o'clock with Chris Brown, Eric Wood, and Sal Capaccio. Jake Arthur, Locked On Colts, next on The Fan.
FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Come watch football this weekend at Havana Moe's. Free pizza at the half, free shots when Buffalo scores a touchdown. It's the one place where you can go have a drink and a cigar and watch football with the expert himself, Mo. It's Havana Moe's, East Ave.
The Fan, Rochester. Sports Update.
Wide receiver Keon Coleman did not practice today. Amari Cooper was limited. On the positive side for Buffalo, corner Christian Benford was a full participant. Josh Allen taking a look at that Colts team.
I think they move around well. Their linebackers, they flow very, very fast. It's, the hard group to run on. And they play a lot of bend, don't break defense where they're going to force you to take some things that are underneath. I think their pass rush unit's pretty dang good. So it's a really good unit.
We will talk to Jake Arthur, Locked On Colts podcast, coming up next year in the Sports Bar. Bills Colts, our pregame coverage begins at 9 a.m. this Sunday here on The Fan, Rochester. Week 10 of the NFL season begins tonight. It's the Bengals and the Ravens. Sabres hockey here on The Fan. They play at MSG against the Rangers. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
You can hear our next guest as part of the Locked On Colts podcast, wherever you get your shows, including the free-to-download Odyssey app. Jake Arthur joining us in the Sports Bar. Jake, and really appreciate you educating us on the season to date with the Indianapolis Colts, and it's one that's had a lot of headlines, certainly no shortage of controversy. You got some injuries in the mix there, and a team that's in the mix, kind of farting around when it comes to their playoff positioning. Jake, up to this point, tell us a little bit about the Colts season and how it's gone so far.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's always something new. You don't really, even those of us who cover it every day, don't even know much what to say. So offensively, this definitely is a team that's still kind of searching for its identity. The last thing you would expect to happen was them to bench Anthony Richardson. But if they've got to get started on winning games, then they feel Joe Flacco gives them the best chance, at least to execute an offensive game plan and give it some consistency. That obviously got off to a pretty rocky start against the Vikings, if anyone watched that one. Of course, national TV, so everyone got to see what was going on there. But defensively, they're kind of carrying things right now. The Colts have been in a lot of really close games, and the defense has more than held its own. It was definitely the more maligned group of the two coming into the season. We were all kind of screaming at them about needing, more insurance and security in the secondary and needing more veterans. That group, although it's gotten banged up, has kind of stepped up a little bit. And then the defensive line rebounded from kind of a horrendous start to the year where they gave up over 200 yards rushing early on. But they're playing a lot better football, especially up front on the defensive side. But, yeah, this offense, it's kind of a new story each week. Again, they're just looking for an identity right now.
Yeah, Jake, help us to understand, the whole switch at quarterback, because I look at Carolina, say, for instance, and, hey, Bryce Young wasn't good, and he needed a timeout. But they went back to him, and I don't know if he's going to get any better, but he did get a win, and they're going to at least learn the rest of the year whether they have something or not. Why kind of the line in the sand here moving forward when you made that investment with Anthony Richardson? Was it the tap out? Was it the locker room? What went into that, Jake?
Yeah, I think there's just a little bit of everything involved in this. Certainly, like I mentioned, it's the last thing you would have expected to see happen, especially by the midway point, first half of the season. Now, Anthony was not playing well early on, but his ability to avoid sacks and run with the football certainly gave the offense a little bit higher of a floor. If they couldn't pass the ball worth a dang, they could at least do the thing, they could at least run the ball. Anthony could get out of pressure. His presence alone really helped things for the running backs and Jonathan Taylor. But he was not playing well. The tap out, I think, it's seen, unless there's just things we're not hearing about, which of course there always will be, because this is a very guarded organization, especially since Shane Steichen has come in. I don't know. I just think for the product on the field, at least, they just probably did not know what to expect week to week from Anthony Richardson. And Joe Flacco, at least as a veteran who can kind of take the layups and maybe give them some stability with, throwing to every area of the field, they can at least try and get some sort of consistency of a game plan going on. We'll see if it can happen against Buffalo. But, yeah, there was something about Anthony where they just no longer felt like they had a positive chance of winning. I mean, Shane Steichen even said, he's like, I owe it to the 53 guys in the locker room to give them the best chance to win. So that's at least what they're putting on the surface. But there was some reports of some national reports, that is, of like Anthony's preparation and things like that and how he's been approaching things this year. Shane Steichen did this week kind of rebuff all that and said he doesn't know what they're talking about and that has nothing to do with it. So as always, I do think there's probably a little more to the story that has not come to the light, but from what we've heard, it's kind of just all, performance and merit based.
Well, you might not know the answer to this because I don't know how much time you're spending in the locker room, and certainly we're not in there during key moments, but it's the kind of move that to me feels like it could divide a team. It could split a locker room because, let's face it, there are younger guys on that team that probably gravitate towards Richardson, his style of play, his athleticism, his personality, more than they would the stoic statue of Joe Flacco, who might give you the better chance to win. It's a long way of me asking, Jake, do you think this locker room is divided, or do you think they really are bought into what Shane Steichen is saying when he says Joe Flacco gives us the best chance to win?
I do think they trust Shane Steichen, but on the same token, from the guys we've talked to in the last couple weeks, I just get the feeling none of them. I don't think they totally were. I don't want to say on board with it, but you get the feeling everyone's still very much on Anthony's side, and maybe it's not the move they would have made. I think everyone sees that Anthony was having some issues, and again, it was hard to know what to expect from him. And Joe Flacco's statistics were certainly much, much better, but Anthony wasn't the only problem, and you just sensed a little bit of apprehension from the players there of, God, here we go again, another change at quarterback. And I think just for their sanity, a lot of these guys would love to just have a quarterback for the entire year. And with it being Anthony, a young guy with some future ahead of him, I think that gave guys some juice, and they wanted to see him grow and develop. And, it wasn't with Joe Flacco going in there. Of course, everyone's like, yeah, he's a veteran. He knows what he's doing, this and that. But everyone's, been there, done that. There's so many guys in there that have played with Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan and the veterans and everything. And it's like, that's nice, but, we really need to see what we've got in this kid. That's without them directly saying that, that's kind of the sense you got.
Jake Arthur is the co-host of the Locked On Colts podcast. Bills and Colts coming up this Sunday. Jake, both teams have some injury concerns. Let's start with the Colts offensive line. How big a loss is Ryan Kelly? Give us kind of the state of the offensive line here.
Yeah, so with Ryan Kelly, traditionally he's a very good player, a Pro Bowl player, but this year he has just been really banged up, and I think the product on the field has probably been suffering a little bit for it. He just doesn't really look like himself, not nearly with the power that he normally has. Tanner Bortolini has had to play a few times this year already and has actually looked really good. Aside from the tape looking, solid, he actually is grading out very well. Pro Football Focus has him as their number 6 rookie offensive lineman in the NFL and the number 1 rookie offensive lineman in pass blocking. So Bortolini's looked pretty good, a bit better as a pass blocker than a run blocker so far. But, this is kind of a patchwork group right now. What was your most confident level on the offense with that line? You've got a rookie undrafted free agent at right guard with Dalton Tucker, who had to fill in because Will Fries, broke his lower leg and is out for the year. So you got 2 rookies right there, and then last week you had a rookie in Matt Gonzalez filling in at left tackle. So this is a group that's had to deal with a lot of change. It does look like Ryman should hopefully be back. He was out with a concussion last week, but so far through 2 days of practice, he's logged full participation. So certainly, unless there's a setback, it looks like Ryman should be back. But yeah, you're going to have 2 rookies there in the middle. So, the Ed Olivers of the world might look at that and be a little bit excited.
As far as the skill position players go, Flacco might be without one of his weapons. Pittman not practicing today. What can you tell us about his injury and his likelihood to play on Sunday?
Yeah, he's one of probably like 4 or 5 guys who their practice week really is centered around like Thursdays. So for him not to practice today was a little interesting because he's had a nagging back issue for weeks now, and they've been kind of trying to be careful with him basically with that back injury. He did tell us this week, he definitely has his good days and bad, but he also had a dislocated finger late in the game last week. So this could just be them being a little more cautious with him. But I do think it's interesting for him to miss a Thursday practice because all the guys who they're cautious with those injuries, they at least all go in there on Thursdays and are full participants. So I wouldn't have really thought much of it except for him being out today. So that definitely bears monitoring. With that said, the back injury, he has really not looked like himself either. Very similar to the Ryan Kelly situation. He's going out there to gut it out for his teammates. He's a captain and everything. But he just only looks like a fraction of himself. Now, one thing about that is if rookie A.D. Mitchell was playing like they probably hoped he would have been, if he would have been playing at a really high level, they could probably afford to not have Pittman playing at a high level. But Mitchell's been coming along really slowly. So the passing game right now really kind of runs through Josh Downs underneath and then getting some chunk plays a little bit downfield to Alec Pierce.
Yeah, we're talking to Jake Arthur about the Colts here as I took a look at the other side of the ball there, and I don't know. I look at these linemen. I'm like, whoa, this might be a tough team to run the ball against. Certainly looks like you'll get former Syracuse linebacker Zaire Franklin, a leading tackler in the team, back at middle linebacker. The Bills come in with James Cook and certainly Ray Davis. A good 1-2 punch. How difficult will it be for Buffalo to run against that front seven, would you say?
They've definitely gotten better than earlier in the year. It certainly helps that DeForest Buckner is back. He got back a couple weeks ago, and the defensive line looks completely different since then. The tricky thing is those linebackers, though, E.J. Speed and Zaire Franklin. There have been games where they've really struggled to get off of blocks and, get their run fits and everything. But historically, they are very good run defenders. So will Buffalo get theirs and, get about 100 or so yards on the ground? Most likely. This isn't like a staunch run defense. They're not really going to shut teams down. That's been a little bit of a struggle for them to do that this year. But they aren't really letting teams run all over them and dominate them anymore. So I would expect Buffalo to be able to have a somewhat balanced offense. But we'll see. I think they certainly play better at home. But yeah, the defense up front has definitely improved. If people's expectation is what they saw from the Colts early in the season, it's definitely not that bad anymore. They've got some things figured out. And Gus Bradley's kind of moving some guys around a little bit and has become, a little more schematically diverse, I would say. He's kind of been known to be kind of stubborn in his ways and his coverages and things. But he's coming along, and he's putting guys in position to actually make those plays in the run game.
Jake, Bills fans wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat remembering a 5-touchdown game that Jonathan Taylor had in Orchard Park a few seasons back. And since that game, we saw a lengthy holdout or, all kinds of off-field issues with the team early last year. And tell me if my eyes deceive me, but he doesn't, to me, appear to be the same back that he was. And certainly years will, add tread to the there's a little bit less tread on the tire for Jonathan Taylor. What kind of a season is he having? Is he the same threat that he was that afternoon when he put up 5 touchdowns against the Bills?
He's still very much an upper echelon running back, but I don't know that he's got like that elite speed that can beat everybody on the field still. If he does, we haven't seen it in a bit, but his game has evolved a little bit. I would say one of his best attributes now is his blend of vision and patience. He's gotten really, really good at reading and following his blocks and just hesitating just a second to let guys get there and then finding a crease. And something that's always been a strength of his is getting really small in between the holes and being able to weave and power his way through defenders. The Colts are using him a lot in between the tackles this year, and it's going overall well, but the problem is they aren't using him consistently. There's stretches where they'll use him and he'll be killing teams, and then they'll disappear, and they just won't use him very much anymore. So I think this is a recipe definitely this week to use him, especially if Buffalo wants to use lighter boxes. But I'd be lying if I said I trusted that the Colts would just hammer it with him, because sometimes what you think is the obvious plan of attack doesn't wind up being what they do. But as far as Taylor's effectiveness goes, he's still very much capable of putting 150 yards on teams. It just depends on what Steichen wants to do with this offense this week.
I like Jim Irsay. I might be kind of alone in that. Somebody that always was free to speak his mind, not quite Jerry Jones, but certainly, was always kind of involved, and he had that health scare. What is is he in the public eye these days? Is he actually behind the quarterback decision? To what involvement does Jim Irsay still have here as the Colts owner?
Yeah, he did have a little bit of a hiatus, about the first half of this year when he was dealing with some of those health issues. He is back in the public eye a little bit more. The Colts recently had a Ring of Honor induction for Dallas Clark, and Jim Irsay was there to help induct him into the Ring of Honor and everything. So he's coming out a little bit more. I don't think he's quite as hands-on. I think he delegates things to Steichen and Chris Ballard a little bit. He tends to step in when he thinks things are out of control. And 2022, his fingerprints were all over that. Obviously, no one else in their right mind would have fired Frank Reich midseason and brought in Jeff Saturday. I think we all kind of thought Frank Reich was a lame duck that year anyways. But to do it, midseason and bring in a guy off the ESPN set, that kind of goes against everything you would think Chris Ballard would stand for example. So he did kind of go lone wolf on that. But I don't get the sense that he is, mandating a bunch of things and pulling all the strings. I mean, he's still very invested in the day-to-day operations, but I think he really only steps in when he feels it's necessary.
Jake, you said something earlier, and it kind of drives home a point I made earlier this week when I look at the Colts and the season that they're having, and I try to relate them to an opponent that the Bills had just a couple of weeks ago. Are the Colts the Seattle Seahawks of the AFC? Because you said that they're a team that you would think you would know what they would do, but they don't always do what you think they're going to do. And we saw in Seattle the Bills dominate a Seahawks team that, well, Kenneth Walker was largely invisible. They didn't really go to him, but you see teams run the ball against the Bills with success. Are the Colts really just Seattle in disguise in the AFC?
I think they would like to be what Seattle is through the air, I think Shane Steichen really wants this downfield passing attack to be a thing. I think week one against Houston was such a dangerous thing to happen for them because, Anthony Richardson took the world by storm with, the three 40, 50-yard plays. And they're like, oh, God, we could do that all the time. And it's like the only part of the field, it seems like, is 10, 15, 20 yards downfield. And it's like there's so much football that you can play up close, in front of the sticks. And so it's just so bizarre. They have a really good offensive line with one of the best running backs in the league who I think it's fair to say has been underused this season. Now, he did miss a couple games with an ankle injury, but he looks good enough to be taking over games, and they're just not doing that with him. And then the passing attack, I think they've got guys who they could get the ball to in the short and intermediate areas, and they're just not. The tight ends have been non-existent, totally. If you're not a Colts fan or follow them, you would not be able to tell me a single thing about their tight ends this year. And it's just such an interesting thing because Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell are really your only downfield winners. And I think that's the reason why this passing game is just so clunky, is because guys aren't being utilized to their strengths necessarily. Now, they still have some time to figure this out. To their credit, Minnesota is a really good defense. Brian Flores is an awesome defensive mind. So working Joe Flacco in his first game against that was probably troublesome. But I think this game against Buffalo will be telling. Not that Buffalo doesn't, present a challenge defensively, but it doesn't have that big notoriety that Brian Flores does, and there's a clear advantage where the Colts should be able to run the ball.
Before we ask you for your kind of pick or your forecast for this game, just kind of curious here. In 317, Eric, I'm assuming you're based still in Indianapolis, correct, Jake?
Yeah, I'm here in Central India. I'm about 15 minutes from their facility.
Okay, so give us a sense of what the sports landscape is in Indy these days, because, well, you have the Pacers. I'm just curious, how Caitlin Clark arriving on the scene, is she the top figure in Indianapolis sports here today, and are the Colts still at the top here?
I think the Colts. Anytime the Colts are winning, they're at the top. But I think right now fans are pretty indifferent because we've gone down the veteran quarterback road again, and there's just not a ton to get excited about. They're not a winning football team right now. The Pacers have some juice because they obviously went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They have some really exciting pieces, and Halliburton and Matherin. But Caitlin Clark, I would say, is king/queen right now. The Fever had awesome attendance all year, not even just at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, but all across the country. And there is zero reason not to think that Caitlin isn't the top athlete in the city right now. And, the Fever, there's really more room for optimism for them than the Colts right now, certainly, because they just kind of pulled the plug on their young quarterback experiment. But between Indiana football being undefeated and the Fever and the Pacers starting up and everything, I think basketball and college football is kind of the ticket right now, because both Notre Dame and IU are in the college football playoff rankings currently.
Jake, what do you think they do when it's all said and done with Anthony Richardson? Is he on this roster this time next year? Do you think they move off of him when it's all said and done? Because you're a team that, since Andrew Luck retired, really doesn't seem to have a plan at quarterback. You drafted one, you invested in one with a number 4 overall pick, and now it feels like his time may be up. What do you think the long-term vision is here for this team at quarterback to kind of get back some of that footing in Indianapolis when you have other stars in your market now?
Yeah, so I would have thought what the Colts would have done is taken this year, let Anthony play the whole year, and then after the season, they would have a pretty good idea of what they wanted to do moving forward. But now your evaluation of him on the football field is done for this year. So I think really the only option they can do is bring in a veteran to compete with him to be the starter next year. Because I don't think they want to get rid of him. But it is hard to say what they're doing. I think we're all kind of wondering the same thing. What's the plan now? I don't even know if they know. But a gun to my head, I think they bring in a veteran to compete with him to be the starter next year. And, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you probably don't have any. I mean, how many success stories start out this way, But it's interesting. I mean, I don't really know what they want to do with his development. There's only so many snaps you can give the backup in practice. But I think they want to see him preparing like a maniac, and God forbid something happens to Joe and Anthony gets back in there this year, they'd probably like to see market improvement.
Colts and Bills.
Yeah.
Apologies there, Jake. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, you're good.
How do you see this playing out? 1:00 our time, the kickoff. Bills favored by 4. Do you see the Colts winning this game?
It's very hard for me to pick for them right now. I see the Bills probably pulling this one out something like 24-16. I would think if the Colts really invest heavily in Jonathan Taylor in this game, then it could change the tone, especially if that opens up like some play action opportunities in the passing game. But they've got to prove that they can be capable of these things first. So I certainly think there's an avenue for the Colts to win, but that is not my assumption whatsoever.
Jake, appreciate you giving us some time this afternoon and educating us on the Colts. We look forward to this weekend, and we'll be listening to the Locked On Colts podcast wherever we get our shows here, okay?
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. There's Jake Arthur. You can hear him on the Locked On Colts podcast and the free-to-download Odyssey app. That's AUDACY.
Okay, so you can run on this defense. That's what I took, even with DeForest Buckner in there.
I'm not worried about the Colts.
No.
If you want to be considered, I said it earlier, if you want to be considered a contender in the AFC, you can't trip on the Colts. You can't. You just cannot.
Benford coming back is huge.
Big. Pittman being injured. That certainly helps the Bills.
Even if Pittman's out there, I think, Benford being back, I'm not concerned that this will be the Joe Flacco, oh my gosh, he threw for 300 yards.
Right, and the thing that he said that reminds me again of Seattle, you would think that they would do the thing you would think they should do, which is run the football, but they tend to not do the thing that you think they should do. I would expect a heavy dose of Jonathan Taylor, but you just heard Jake say, yeah, they're not really leaning on him as much as you would think they should.
As long as the course here for Josh Allen has been set at, hey, you're facing the two high safeties, take what's given. He has done a magnificent job this year. And if you continue going that down, Khalil Shakir, okay, I don't like it. Here you go. Gain of 7.
All day.
Yeah, do it. Do it all day.
All day. And we assume that head coach it's the assumption of rational coaching, right? You assume that they see what the Bills' run defense looks like and you would just get fed a steady dose of Jonathan Taylor. Well, I don't know that we can assume that Shane Steichen is a rational coach based on what he's done here this season.
I'll say this, and I know he's your linebacker, but we all have the Jonathan Taylor nightmare. Oh, my gosh. The guy who was the middle linebacker that was taking the wrong gaps, he's playing in Chicago now.
Dude, you don't have to apologize.
Honestly, Terrell Bernard is a better middle linebacker.
I agree. I see it every week. And I'm like, oh, there he is again, not being physical. Oh, there he is again, out of position. Oh, there he is again, not in the right gap. It's wonderful. Glad we're paying him all that money. But he's so big. He's so physical. He's so imposing. Is he? Yeah, you're right. And we'll see. Maybe it is different. Maybe you are able to bottle them up early and they never get the run game going and you're forced to make Joe Flacco beat you with his arm, in which case I would hope the Bills pass rush can get after a guy who's a statue in the pocket. Appreciate Jake Arthur giving us some time when we learn a little more about the Indianapolis Colts. And again, you'll be able to hear the game here on the Fan Rochester, your home for Buffalo Bills football. That's Sunday afternoon with kickoff at 1 o'clock. We got happy hour next. A round of shots on the way. We'll look over that Buffalo Bills injury report from today's practice, and we'll take your calls. 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester, sports update.
Certainly looks like the Bills are getting back Christian Benford once again, a full participant in practice today. Keon Coleman did not practice with that wrist injury. Amari Cooper today was limited. Josh Allen on his counterpart this week, the 39-year-old Joe Flacco. He's
an absolute baller. He throws one of the prettiest balls you'll ever see. So I got a lot of respect for him and his game. So Super Bowl winning quarterback. That's he's one of the ones. He's a fantastic player, but an even better person.
Bills Colts, our pregame coverage will begin at 9 a.m. this Sunday here on the Fan Rochester. Week 10 of the NFL season begins tonight. It's the Bengals and the Ravens in Baltimore. Sabres tonight in action, looking to make it 2 in a row. They take on the Rangers at MSG. Our coverage will begin at 7. The Amerks have won 5 in a row. Hartford coming to town tomorrow night. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Are the Bills going to have a letdown? Are they going to be looking ahead to Kansas City? The Bills have been playing great football over the last 2 weeks. They have not let the foot off the gas. They have not been looking ahead. They have taken care of business. I think Buffalo wins by a field goal.
Mike Danger.
This Colts team feels like AFC Seattle. Bottom line with what I'm saying here is if you want to be taken seriously as a contender, you don't drop a game to the Colts on Sunday. It can't happen. You beat them and you beat them thoroughly. So important. I think the Bills cover. I don't see any way that the Bills don't blow out the Colts.
Gene Battaglia.
In this game, you might get some takeaways for Buffalo if they're doing the right stuff, and I think the Bills should have some success. I do like the Bills in this spot. And last time the Bills played the Colts, I said the Colts would win big time. I just see this one a little different. And maybe it just tells you, hey, they're actually dialed in on this game.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Fun afternoon in the Sports Bar. Welcome into Happy Hour on the Fan Rochester. We appreciate you watching us on our YouTube channel at the Fan Rochester, a stream on Twitch at the Fan Rochester. We sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app and on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. Big thanks to Jake Arthur, the Locked On Colts podcast, joined us last hour, and Dan Fates of 13 Wham Sports, who stopped by the Sports Bar in the 3 o'clock hour to give us the latest for Buffalo Bills practice today. The injury report is out. Still no Keon Coleman. You still have pretty heavily wrapped wrist of Amari Cooper, but you do get Christian Benford back in practice.
Yeah, Cooper's injury happened when he was blocking in the Seattle game, so not sure which play that was. So you're hoping if Cooper comes back, you should be okay, but the idea that Benford is ready to go, and it's funny how things come into focus after talking and listening to Jake Arthur. I think you and I are kind of in agreement. It seems like 4 points should be an easy cover for the Buffalo Bills in this game.
Yeah, you would think. And just quickly, we talk about Cooper getting hurt on a block against Seattle. We all kind of recognize that Mac Hollins isn't going to be some earth-shattering eye-popping stat machine in the Bills' wide receiver room. But if you really look at his game against Miami, especially when they were down close to the goal line, the plays before he caught his touchdown pass against the Dolphins, he was blocking dudes to the moon. I mean, Mac Hollins was vicious out there. It was fantastic to see.
Yeah, in that play, that fourth down play where they're going to give you the eye candy. Like, we didn't even talk about that. Like, it was a game where we're focused on the end, but that touchdown certainly was as big as any, and Hollins getting lost on the back end, just well designed there by Joe Brady. And, yeah, I think Mac Hollins, as long as, he still continues to play at this level, he's the perfect wide receiver 5 for this team. It's when you're in situations like this, okay, like he's going to have to be wide receiver 3 again this week because I don't know what to expect out of Curtis Samuel from here on out.
Correct. So we'll keep an eye on the injury report again tomorrow. Of course, when you're listening to the Sports Bar, we'll have that for you, and we'll let you know how things are trending heading into Sunday. But yeah, after talking to Jake Arthur, I feel kind of good about the Bills' opportunity here in Indianapolis. And I'll keep saying it, the Bills want to be considered a contender. You do what contending teams do. You beat up on inferior opponents. This is a 4-5 team. They're not playing winning football right now. They're a mess with their quarterback, their young quarterback benched, and Joe Flacco out there. And I know Joe Flacco's a great story, comeback player of the year. He got the Browns to the postseason. What if this is the Joe Flacco that we saw in Denver? Just a guy who, or with the Jets, a guy who just looks washed.
The playoff game against Houston last year, that was the other thing too. And I asked Jake Arthur this question for a reason, because I kind of, all right, tell us what's going on in Indy about Caitlin Clark versus the Colts. He brought up something interesting that, yes, this is an obvious point, but if you're a sports fan or if you're a football fan in that area of the world, you're dialed into either the Hoosiers and or Notre Dame. Both these teams in a college playoff, especially for Indiana. Indiana football, don't want to offend anybody, but they've been on the Northwestern level over the years for many, many years. So, you're paying more attention to college football. I'm just throwing this out here, Danger, where you're drawing these parallels to Seattle. I don't know if this is going to be this hostile environment.
No,
going to be walking into.
That's one thing, one element of this weekend that we haven't really addressed. The idea that Lucas Oil is a library. I mean, I really don't feel like the fans are that engaged. It's quiet, and Jake kind of hinted to that they're kind of disinterested because, oh, here we go again, another veteran quarterback, and you bench the guy that that they are more interested in other things right now than Colts football. They'll be there, but I have a feeling this is going to sound an awful lot like the Seattle game, and where you kind of think, is this a Bills home game? Because there's a lot of noise being made when the Bills are on defense.
Right. Your passions right now are going to college football, or maybe you're still riding that high of watching the best female in basketball and Caitlin Clark. The Colts are not. They're not the number one right now in Indy. It's a divided audience, and I think that plays well for Buffalo, the idea that, all right, maybe there are some fans that are going to go in there and buy some tickets, and maybe you will get some Bills Mafia showing up here.
Now, tomorrow we'll make our final predictions for Sunday's action. I'll be on with Tommy and Duffy and Kimmy in the break room for Tommy Tells It Like It Is. We'll give a prediction then, and, of course, tomorrow afternoon, Gino and I will share our final prediction heading into the weekend. 1 o'clock game, you'll be able to hear the action here on the Fan Rochester. You're home for Buffalo Bills football.
Yeah, that'll be okay. We'll wait, but I think you know which way we're kind of leaning on that, right?
Yeah, you probably have a sense of which way we're going. Week 10 gets underway tonight. It's a compelling Thursday night matchup. I don't know if we'll get Grumpy Al tonight. Maybe we will if there's a lot of penalties.
What do you want to see from the Bills' standpoint? Do you want to invite the Bengals back to the party? A loss for the Bengals here, Danger, and they're going to be seriously farting around here. They're on the outside of the graphic, but they win. They're 5-5. You can talk about them being the 6 or 7 or even maybe pushing it. I think the answer is you want Cincinnati to pull off the upset here. Cincinnati is a 6-point underdog here. You want Baltimore pushed down the peg there. You don't want Baltimore winning the division and winning some tiebreaker down the road against Buffalo, because, look, I think that's a team that, okay, you don't get the top seed, congratulations. You're going to have to figure out, you're going to have to play these guys at some point if you want to get to the ultimate destination being the Super Bowl. So, to me, deal the Ravens a loss here tonight.
It would be great for the Bills if the Ravens lost, but I don't want to sleep on Pittsburgh based on what they've done so far. You could say, oh, well, they're 6-2, and they've had a really, really nice season to date, and Russell Wilson is playing good football. And here's what I would say about the Steelers here down the stretch, is they're right now in first place in the AFC North.
Do you know their schedule?
I have it in front of me.
Oh, I do too.
So after they play the Commanders this weekend, they hit their divisional gauntlet, and it does not get easy for the Steelers. They're going to have to earn their way into this postseason if they want a chance at the postseason. After this week, they take on the Ravens at home. They travel to Cleveland to take on the Browns. They travel to Cincy to take on the Bengals. Then they host the Browns. Middle of December, they travel to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. The following week, they travel to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Then, Christmas Day, congratulations, you get to host the Chiefs before you wrap the season hosting the Bengals. So it's 6-2 right now. I have a hard time seeing the Pittsburgh Steelers going through that tail end of the schedule and making the postseason.
It's pointing out, too, that you go from Philadelphia And then it's a short week where you got to go on the road and play Baltimore on a Saturday. Why did they do that? Because it's a Wednesday. Christmas falls on a Wednesday. Remember we said, oh, no, they're going to play on Christmas Day from here on out. Sure enough, Wednesday football, here we are hosting the Chiefs on that.
Yeah.
I hear that. I'm like, yeah, you're lucky to go 4-4.
Right. So Baltimore right now, just a half game behind at 6-3. And I just get the sense that Baltimore is going to hang around, and I get the sense that Cincinnati is going to surge a little bit here and make everybody and play kind of spoiler for everybody in the AFC North. Yeah, give me Cincinnati plus the points tonight. I think Baltimore can win this game, but I'm rooting for Cincinnati to win this game. Not necessarily because I want to see Cincinnati in the party. I don't think Cincinnati will be in the party either, and we should probably look at their schedule down the stretch here to see if it's a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, the Steelers lost the Colts. Forgot about that one.
Yeah. As far as the Bengals go after tonight, they travel to L.A. to take on the Chargers. They go to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. And then they've got some winnable games at Dallas, at Tennessee, before they host the Browns, host the Broncos, and wrap up the season with a trip to Pittsburgh.
Sounds like that game, trip to Pittsburgh, that they might need that to get in.
Yeah, for sure. So, again, we've kind of been saying all along, it's like the AFC North is just going to cannibalize each other, and only the stronger are going to survive. Baltimore can still win the AFC North, even with Pittsburgh atop it right now when you look at Pittsburgh's schedule, and Cincinnati could be a pest. If they make a wild card, I'm telling you, Gino, that's a team I don't want to see in the postseason. I do not want to see the Bengals, if I'm the Buffalo Bills, in the postseason. Get that one seed. Get that one seed.
It's right. The 2, the 7. Last year, you were the beneficiary of a Pittsburgh team that was limping in. Quick, who was the quarterback? That it was Mason Rudolph. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that right. Joe Burrow or Mason Rudolph. Like you're hoping like some team is on fumes if you end up being the 2. Look, the game next week, and we're allowed to talk about this. We don't play for the team. We don't work for the team. That game against Kansas City, you win that game. We are having an honest conversation about the 1 seed. As difficult as the Bills' schedule is, because you look at that, Kansas City bye week, San Francisco, Super Bowl. Hey, and then you get the Lions and the Rams on the road. Heck, if you split that danger, you're still 13-4 on the season.
Yeah. Well, it'll be fun. It'll be worth watching tonight. It's a meaningful game. If you're the Bills, you want to kind of keep tabs on who comes out of the North there, and whether or not Baltimore is going to be able to keep pace with you here for seeding down the road. Khalil Herbert in the Bengals backfield will make his debut for Cincinnati tonight. And the Ravens earlier today releasing pass rusher Yannick Ngakoue, who's a name that we've talked about for years and years, and I just don't know that there's anything left in his game. The hope for the Ravens is that it'll clear waivers and they can add him back to their practice squad.
Keaton Mitchell's back for the Ravens. I like that guy, and he remember he was very speedy and everything.
Very fast.
Yeah, and then so he's coming back from an ACL. I don't know how much they're going to use him tonight, but just worth noting.
Other news around the NFL from today, Chuba Hubbard in Carolina. Carolina making a move that I don't know why, but when I saw it, I'm like, this just reminds me of a move that mediocre to bad teams make. And Chuba Hubbard's having a nice season. And I'm sure he's a great guy and a locker room guy and a good role model and presence on the team. He gets a 4-year extension with $15 million and fully guaranteed, a max value of $37.2 million. This is the same team that just invested a second-round draft pick in a rookie running back out of Texas. And I guess I'm kind of looking at it like, well, why? Why are you giving him this money knowing that you're going to eventually have, to give him an assurance that even when the rookie comes back to the team after rehabbing an ACL, that you're both going to get your share, you're both going to get your touches? I don't understand the move, really, other than Hubbard has really played well this year for Carolina.
I guess maybe you're trying to give this signal to everybody else on the team that we're trying to build something here, and here's a piece that we want. To me, I don't know. I would have paid your defensive end, Burns, last year rather than shipping him off to the Giants. That he's a 4th-round pick, Danger. A 4th-round pick, which means spend another 4th-round pick, and you can come up with a Ray Davis. So the idea that his average annual salary now a little over $8 million. It puts him in the top 10 paid at running back.
Oh, man. Imagine that. Imagine Chuba freaking Hubbard is being compensated as a top 10 running back in the NFL. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, that's just poor business here. I mean, I go down the list: McCaffrey, Kamara, Taylor. Let's see here. Like, okay, Taylor, McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Ramondre, Mixon, Swift. Yeah, there's Chuba Hubbard at 10. Guys behind him, Josh Jacobs, good value this year. Derrick Henry.
Right. Oh. I saw something else, too. Speaking of Derrick Henry, and give me a second here and I'll pull it up, because when I saw this stat, I'm like, is that true? And if that's true, what does it mean for Josh Allen's prospects of being league MVP? There is, let me see.
Let me guess. He'll take away some of the vote from Lamar? Is that what they're saying?
The stat is, hang on, I have it. I swear I do. Mm-hmm. The stat is that when you're a player who leads the league in yards, as right now Derrick Henry is doing, there's never been an MVP quarterback on this. That quarterback has not gotten an MVP vote. I'm butchering.
I follow you. Like, yeah, the running back who is leading the league, you don't have the quarterback win the MVP.
Only one time did you have a quarterback win MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. And I guess what I'm saying here is Derrick Henry right now looks like he could be the Offensive Player of the Year. And if that happens, it's unlikely that Lamar would become your MVP. It could happen.
I'm thinking it's just going to be as simple as who's the 1 seed, because there's going to be a lot. Or do we have Chiefs fatigue? Because if the Chiefs finish the season 16-1, and people are having an honest conversation saying, this wasn't the best, group of receivers and weapons for Patrick Mahomes, but they made it work. They won football games. And look at his stats aren't good. Josh Allen clearly superior, but are wins the most important factor when it comes to awarding the MVP?
Yeah. Derrick Henry right now on pace to lead in both yards and touchdowns. And I guess the stat was that there wasn't ever a quarterback who received a single MVP one vote if they played with someone who leads the NFL in yards and in touchdowns.
Can I go back to the salaries for the running backs here, Danger? Because the more accurate one would be to go on the average of the contract. Certainly upfront money is important. I'm going to give you these, and there's a name ahead of Chuba Hubbard. In terms of average, this puts him 9th in the league right now. $8.3 million puts him 9th in the league. It puts him 9th in the league.
Sorry, Gene.
9 times.
Still trying to figure out how I could butcher that stat. I was just trying to relay about Lamar and Derrick Henry.
So McCaffrey, Taylor, Barkley are top 3. Alvin Kamara at 12. Josh Jacobs at 12. David Montgomery at 6. Joe Mixon at 8th. Who's at 7th? Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah.
Okay. We have some teams that are drunk here, okay? Just because it worked with guys like Saquon. Yeah, he's really good. Yeah, let's pay him. Wow, what a deal they got there. Wow, and like way down the list there, the guy we're just talking about, Derrick Henry. That doesn't mean you pay Ramondre Stevenson or Chuba Hubbard. Those guys are interchangeable.
Yes. This is why I think the James Cook conversation is going to be a very interesting one here down the stretch. Not this season, but in the next couple of seasons, when you have to make a decision on what you're going to do with James Cook. Do you stick to your guns and do what you've always done, which is, and you've already done it, really. Ray Davis could be the heir apparent to James Cook. There's a lot to like in his game. And if James Cook hits free agency because you decide you don't want to pay the guy, are you willing to say goodbye?
I don't know. Like, look, this market seems pretty dumb the way it's being set right now. Stevenson getting an average of 9, Chuba Hubbard. James Cook's better than both those guys.
Right.
Even though James Cook will drop a pass and you'll go, no, he will get you first downs.
Yeah. It was the old Belichick way of doing things, system and value. System and value. We have our system and we look for value.
Well, I have great value right now.
You do have great value, Coach. We're very proud of you, and your ability to explore Nantucket, we hear, is world-renowned. Congratulations. I hear you had a very nice Halloween with Jordan.
She was a mermaid.
I saw. She took pictures, selfies right there on the beach and everything. I mean, she's got you wearing Taylor Swift gear. You're posing for selfies. I mean, life seems to be pretty good.
Have you seen Taylor? Oh, wait. You're taking a shot. I get it. You and Taylor have this history, Dave.
I have no history with Taylor Swift. She didn't know my name. Well, Coach, it's good to have you on with us, and I'm just going to let you know that you're doing a great job in all of your media appearances, all of your shows. You're very insightful. You're a natural at it, and I see no reason why you should return to an NFL sideline, given how great your life has been since leaving the New England Patriots.
What's your co-host there, Battaglia?
Yeah, Battaglia.
I think he's going to lose his bet.
Yeah, I think so too. Just if you talk to him before I do, Coach, just let him know. I like the boxed wine that comes in the dark purple box, the Pinot Noir, the lush Pinot Noir. That's the one I'm angling for.
Have you tried those seltzers? My girl there, Jordan, loves seltzers.
I'm glad she does. Not for me, but appreciate it, Coach. And scene. Yeah, I don't get what the Patriots are doing with that move with Stevenson, and I don't get what the Panthers are doing with Chuba Hubbard. I mean, I guess I get the point. Oh, we want to reward ours. He's doing a great job. He's stepping up. He's having a good season. And maybe that makes others in the organization want to step up and play, but I don't know, man.
How much do you love football? Do you love it enough to watch football at 9:30 from Germany between the Panthers and the Giants on Sunday?
The answer? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I do. And I will. So we'll see that on Sunday morning. Unbelievable. We got to get to a round of shots next on The Fan.
Yeah, gosh, we just got done with this election. Who might be running in 2028? Danger. I got a name.
I haven't even thought about it.
Okay, I'm going to throw this name at you because this guy is putting his hand up into the air.
Okay.
Don't look at the notes.
I won't look at our notes.
Don't look at the notes here. I want to get your reaction live on the air because, of course, we're talking about this.
It's a sports angle.
It's a sports angle.
Oh,
it's
God.
A sports
It's
show.
got to be Rodgers. Tell me it's Rodgers.
No,
it's
I'm
not Rodgers?
No. It's not gonna be anybody that's gonna make you mad.
Oh.
But we could debate if it's actually
when
plausible.
RFK gets put on Trump's cabinet, you know that Rodgers is going to angle for a way to get in there, a little career in politics post-football. And they'll eat it up. They'll absolutely find a spot for him somewhere.
That's why, if you're upset, Aaron Rodgers could be your president right now. No, I don't. I shouldn't even say that. What's going on with the Spurs and head coach, the team president, Greg Popovich? We'll give you an update on that. We've got some baseball notes here for you as well. And the viral person from the Olympics has retired. I'll tell you who that was.
All right, we'll get to that and more next round of shots. And last call coming up as well. If you want to get in and have the final say in the sports bar, here's our phone number, 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
AM 950 The Fan Rochester weekday mornings. Then let the sports banter make your alarm clock look like a bad idea. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills rookie wide receiver Keon Coleman did not practice once again today. Amari Cooper was limited. Now on the positive side, corner Christian Benford, a full participant. He's on track to play coming up on Sunday. Josh Allen talking about that Colts D.
I think they move around well. Their linebackers, they flow very, very fast. It's the hard group to run on. And they play a lot of bend don't break defense where they're going to force you to take some things that are underneath. I think their pass rush unit's pretty dang good. So it's a really good unit.
Bills Colts coverage will begin at 9 a.m. this Sunday here on the Fan Rochester. Week 10 of the NFL season begins tonight. Good game. Bengals and the Ravens. Ravens favored by 6. Sabres tonight play at Madison Square Garden against the Rangers. Our coverage will begin at 7. Amherst have won 5 in a row. Hartford comes to town tomorrow night. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Got a smart speaker at home? Listen to the sports leader, the Fan Rochester at home, by asking it to play 95.7 The Fan.
Happy hour continues on the Fan. You're in the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia serving up a round of shots.
So Stephen A. went on The View on Wednesday, and I know what you're thinking, Danger. Francesa here, The View.
Oh, The View. Oh, my God. Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about...
Oh, who cares?
You want to talk about a show, I can't tolerate 5 seconds of that show. Like, you want to torture me? If anybody's listening, feel like, hey, you know that guy that talks about sports on the radio with Gene every day for 3 hours? I don't like that guy. I would like to torture that guy for what he said about my team or what. Go ahead, lock me up and force me to watch The View for more than 5 seconds. I will lose my mind.
I don't even know who's still on that show. Is Whoopi still on?
Whoopi's on. Joy Behar is on.
Joy Behar's still there.
And the rest of them, I don't know.
Hasselbeck, is she still on?
I mean, I something crossed my feed, and it's like just the tears on Wednesday from The View, and it's like I can't watch a second of The View.
Well, this is from the Wednesday show. They bring Stephen A. on. They introduced him as political commentator Stephen A. Smith. Hold on. Like, he was there not to talk about sports, but to discuss what happened the night before. Stephen A. was then asked if he would consider running for president. First, he scoffed at it. Then he gives you the quote, "If you came to me and told me I had a legitimate shot to win the presidency of the United States of America, I would definitely consider it."
No!
Currently, Smith is working on a new contract with ESPN, reportedly around $20 million a year.
He'll get that contract. He's worth that contract. But I think we all recognize it for what it is, right? Like, he's not a journalist anymore. He's a showman.
But understand, like, that's how these guys start out. Like Skip Bayless.
Yep.
Fantastic writer covering the Dallas Cowboys, but at some point, you want to make money.
Yeah.
How do you make money? You become an entertainer.
Sure. And here's the reason why I can't entirely dismiss this. If you want a good laugh when you talk about our political system and the pundits and the people that...
I don't know if I can laugh, but go on.
The talking heads that like to pretend like they know what's going to happen in our country next, go back and listen. There's no shortage of montages of footage of political shows and news networks making fun and mocking Donald Trump's run to the presidency in 2016. We all remember that. Like, nobody saw Trump doing what he did in 2016 because everybody viewed him like we're viewing Stephen A. right now. Yeah, okay, whatever. This guy was on the Apprentice. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to say never. I can't say that it could never happen.
Well, is he testing this out? Or it gives you some ideas, put some thought into this because, well, okay, that would be the question.
I mean, if you put him up on stage for a debate, do you think he's gonna clam up? I don't.
What party would he be affiliated with? Currently, he's an independent. He talks about you would probably have to identify with one of the parties.
Yep.
If you remember, drawing your analogy,
yep,
like Trump was going to run as independent, like, you know what, I'll hook up.
Yeah.
And then that's what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see the template that was laid out just 8 years ago, and if you're Stephen A. and you have designs on more power.
So 2028, Stephen A. against Mark Cuban. The sports world just sharpening the.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know that I'm ready for a world where Stephen A. Where a takesman is president, but I think if that shows you anything, it says what we say all the time: takes are currency.
Well,
if you have
20
takes,
million, yeah.
If you have takes, you have value, and takes are currency. I don't know that I'm ready for this, but I can't dismiss it entirely. 8 years wasn't that long ago.
We had no games in the NBA on Tuesday, and tonight we have only 3, none of which were on television, Danger. Portland playing at San Antonio, where the situation surrounding team president and head coach Greg Popovich has not improved, and we're not getting any info here. The one report from ESPN's Shams Charania saying that there is a great level of concern about Pop.
I don't like that, and we hope that he improves. But we'll keep tabs there, man. That would be a tough loss for basketball.
If there was one weakness to the Dodgers last season, well, you could say, hey, they didn't have a starting pitcher. Okay, I'm just talking about the 9 on the field there. It was second base. Gavin Lux, just a guy, right? Well, the Dodgers have a plan to improve here. Move Mookie Betts back to the infield, where he'll play second or shortstop next year. This according to their GM, Brandon Gomes. What position did Mookie Betts play last year, Danger?
Right field.
Who's a right fielder on the market right now?
Juan Soto.
Funny, when we talked last week to Dodger fan and former, Lee Steinberg, one of the biggest agents of all time, the thought of Soto as a Dodger, I hadn't even entertained it because, wait a second, you have Freddie Freeman, you bought Betts, you bought Ohtani. Could you actually fit that under? And then you realize, oh, wait, there's no salary cap.
They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Go get them. Offer them the moon and see what happens. But you're already laying the groundwork by moving Betts to the infield.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I mean, if you're Soto, you go to the team that you just lost to in the World Series. I don't think any of that matters. I think it's just a matter of who's giving it. You'll have a chance to win, obviously, with that roster, so that's a positive.
So,
and we're giving you the most money.
There was something. Look, it is a business, right? But when the Astros lost to the Nationals and Garrett Cole went up to the post-game podium and wasn't wearing any Astros gear. It was just a generic hat he was wearing. Like, oh, my gosh, he's moved on. He's not coming back. It was like, wait a second, can you give this a half second? To me, that felt the same way where, hey, reasons why the Yankees lost, Juan Soto is nowhere near the
That's
top.
right.
Well, him talking just minutes after you lose a crushing game about how excited you are about free agency, how excited you are after a loss like that should not be in the same context. I'm sorry. Anyway.
Well, it'll be an interesting thing to watch through the offseason. Obviously, I think it's the storyline of Major League Baseball's offseason. And when you hear that there are 13 teams that are showing interest, and the Dodgers are one of those teams, the Dodgers are the Dodgers going to be – the Dodgers may already be in danger of being the Yankees of the West Coast, where everybody hates the team that just goes out and buys. And by the way, I hate that take. Like, if you hate the Yankees or you hate the Dodgers because they just buy championships by getting the best players, be mad at those teams. Be mad at your team for not doing what they do.
If you're the Yankees, you go out and you hurt the Orioles by getting Corbin Burns. And you resign Soto. That should be your whole plan this year. And then you're going to get a real first baseman, too. I'm sorry, a guy that can actually field. Augusta National has let in 2 new members, both with sports ties. Former CBS Sports executive Sean McManus, now a member, and Eli Manning.
Oh.
Eli was just here last week in Rochester. I don't know if he got to play Oak Hill or not, but he's going to be able to play Augusta National. Peyton Manning was already a member of Augusta, so it only made sense to let Eli in.
Yeah. Boy, imagine the elite status that you have achieved in life if you can say you're a member of Augusta National. And for those guys, for Eli and Peyton, probably don't even give it a second thought.
The protocol there is, if you ask to become a member, you will not become a member. You have to do your research ahead of time, and you wait to be asked. I'm not kidding you. That is like actually a fact. Like, if you call up and say, hey, how much is a membership? Can I get on the wait list?
Forget it. Forget
Sorry.
it, pal.
Beat it.
You have to be notorious. You have to be recommended. Sean McManus. Well, all those years of coverage there for CBS. Yeah, that makes sense. And Eli makes sense as well. Peyton and Eli are out there playing around at Augusta National. What a time.
Finally, Rachel Gunn, known as the breakdancer Ray Gunn.
Yeah.
She's retired from the sport
What?
at the age of 37. She became a celebrity for, how do they put it, her unique display, her style. Gunn didn't score a point in her 3 matches in the opening round of the Olympics and became a meme shortly after.
That's a one and done, right? They're not going to bring back breakdancing
No.
in L. See, the thing is, they should have breakdancing. They should have waited and had it in L.A. Then we could see Ozone and Freeze and all the old school, like the influences that are there. Like that's where I could see breakdancing being a thing. It doesn't make sense in Paris, and it certainly doesn't make sense with what she was doing. I saw him like, that ain't breakdance. That ain't Beat Street. That ain't Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo. That ain't what I'm used to seeing when you talk about competitive breakdancing.
How did you make the Olympics to begin with? Watching this. It was like a Chris Farley bit, the Chippendale one. That's
Yeah.
what it seemed like. Yeah.
Well, hey, look, and bless her heart. I mean, she got skewered online, and I don't even know. Did she cancel? She probably deleted all of her social media.
She just asked for privacy at that point.
Yeah.
And so, you asked for privacy, but now we're talking about your retirement.
Yeah,
so.
and all she did was everything she was asked to do. All she did was show up and compete, and it wasn't good, but retiring at 37. Yeah, well, good run, Ray Gunn. You had your moment, as so many people get nowadays, your moment of virality. Congratulations. We're going to take a break and come back with Last Call, and we'll set you up for Friday in the Sports Bar. We got a couple of our good friends stopping by. We'll tell you who we'll be talking to tomorrow, next on The Fan Rochester. Hey, surprise your loved ones with the gift of self-care by giving your loved ones a gift card from the spa at the Del Monte. This November, for every $250 gift card purchased, receive an additional $25 gift card. A gift card allows that special someone to indulge with one of their signature spa treatments, bask in their salon services, and treat themselves to the many luxurious products in the spa at the Del Monte's boutique. Visit them at the spa at the Del Monte or purchase a gift card instantly at delmontespa.com.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger. With Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
You can really see that owners, general managers, that they're kind of called upon to be, championship magicians. That's kind of what they're asked to do. It's hard to do, to put together that magic of a championship run. But behind every great magician, obviously, is the magic wand.
You found it.
Dandelion.
All right.
All right, Dandelion.
The magic wand.
The bounty hunter of the finest audio in the galaxy.
It's like, what am I listening to? Oh, Boris.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking about Juan Soto maybe ending up with the Dodgers with the move of Betts to the infield and right field wide open for that team. Makes a lot of sense.
That's where he's going, isn't it?
I love that.
Well,
I love that quote. Scott Boras, the magic wand.
The magic
wand. I don't know if it's better than the Bryce Harper. The Bryce Harper quote is an all-timer. Certainly, Harper's Bazaar has begun. It's fashionable. It's historical. It's elite. Global, certainly. And certainly it has inspirations that deal with great shoes and great hair. Guy is unbelievable. Just I wish he's a guy that would learn how to shamelessly overhype his clients.
Yeah, no, he does. He has a lot to learn in that department. Our number, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Last call is for you. John in Rochester. What's up, buddy?
Hey, guys. Remember the days when you went to Indy to play, when they had Manning, Jim Harbaugh, Jeff George? The crowd noise was unbearable. But you guys brought up a good point. I don't think those fans are too excited with, Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco, if he gets hot, look out. But I don't think crowd noise is going to be a factor. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the Tyler Bass. It's like a golf swing. I think he made the adjustment, and he's right on now, man. He's worth all the $7 million that he makes.
Oh,
what do you think?
Oh boy.
Oh, boy.
I hope you're not putting the Maloik on Tyler Bass. That's what I said, the Maloik.
Maloik is how it's pronounced, David.
No, it's not. It's pronounced Maloik.
I need to see Tyler Bass hit more extra points and field goals before I say he's going to be back. Yes, that's a memorable kick, and we want to believe that it's not in his head anymore.
Imagine you're the Colts fan base where you see Peyton Manning, you get to the top, you're satiated, you go to Andrew Luck right then after.
It's fantastic.
And now you're kind of like, I can understand why everybody might just be kind of...
They're frustrated.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco, yay. Who do we have before Joe Flacco? Oh, we had Gardner Minshew. Oh, we had Matt Ryan. Oh, we didn't have Matt Ryan. We had Phillip Rivers. Like, oh, God, just one.
Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, just one bad idea after the other. No plan. And then when you do get your guy and you invest the number 4 overall pick, you bench him after he's only started and completed 6 full games? Yeah, I get why they would be they're kind of a joke right now. That's embarrassing.
Who would be the quarterback next year? I've got a name in mind. Quarterback next year in Indy if they're going to follow this path.
If they follow this path. Okay, so if we want to listen to what our guy Jake Arthur said.
They're going to bring in a veteran next year.
Bring in a veteran to compete. Who's that guy going to be? I'm not going to say Sam Darnold, but Sam Darnold would make sense.
I'm going to go with Derek Carr. Free and available.
Godspeed, Colts fans. Hey, like I've been saying all week, if you're the Bills and you want to be taken seriously as a contender in the AFC, you don't trip up against a team right now like the Colts, who I believe could be fractured. I think they're a broken team. But we'll see. They're professionals, and I'm sure they'll show up, and it might not be easy, but we'll continue to discuss Bills-Colts tomorrow afternoon here on the Fan Rochester. Tomorrow, also joining us in the sports bar, we'll talk fantasy football. We'll set your Week 10 lineups with Andy Behrens from Yahoo Fantasy, and we'll be joined by our buddy, the superhero of the spread. Nice action on Saturday in college football, and Thor Nystrom will be joining us as well. Thor living that fantasy life over there with Matthew Berry.
Yeah, as Georgia Ole Miss.
Yeah,
like the college football has been a fantastical setup for Saturday, too.
If you missed any of this afternoon, including Jake Arthur from the Locked On Colts podcast last hour, or Dan Fates, who stopped by the sports bar earlier in the 3 o'clock hour, you can get those conversations wherever you enjoy your shows. Just search out the sports bar. That includes the free-to-download Odyssey app. That's our home online, and inside the Odyssey app with Rewind, you can go back and listen to any part of the show that you may have missed for the next 24 hours. I'll be on with Duffy, Tommy, and Kimmy tomorrow for Tommy Tells It Like It Is. I'll give my prediction and listen to Tommy's picks as well. We, Gino and I, are back tomorrow starting at 3 with a brand new episode. JR Sport Brief next. Sabres hockey on the way at 7, live from Madison Square Garden. Enjoy your night. Talk to you tomorrow afternoon on The Fan.